Chapter 309. Brother escaped from that room and went into room 6011. Ce checked Yun Yi's condition on the computer and walked over to Yun Jian. Your brother? Yun Jian relaxed when she heard that Yun Yi was fine. At the same time, she heard Ce call Yun Yi brother, and immediately grasped the key point. He was obviously her brother, okay? Since when did her brother become his brother? The corners of Ce's lips quirked up as he replied with squinted eyes, your brother agreed to it himself. In fact, he had accidentally revealed all his thoughts. Her brother would become his brother sooner or later. Oh, Yun Jian glanced at Ce and walked out with Ce. Yun Yi was now on the 6th floor. When Yun Yi broke free from Zhao Yishan and ran to room 6011 from another room, she was actually quite a distance away and had even turned a corner. When Yun Jian and Ce arrived on the 6th floor, they saw Zhao Yishan standing in front of room 6011 and trying to break down the door. Yun Yi had just been drugged and her body was weak. Fortunately, she was one step ahead of Zhao Yishan and went into another room to lock the door. Zhao Yishan was one step behind. He stood at the door anxiously and started to think of a way to break down the door. Yun Jian went straight to the door. This time, she didn't let Ce do it for her. Instead, she walked over and grabbed Zhao Yishan's collar. She easily dragged Zhao Yishan, who was much taller than her, over. How dare you hurt my brother? She glared at Zhao Yishan and said through gritted teeth. Zhao Yishan had seen Yun Jian before. He recognized her at first sight and didn't know what to say for a moment. Yun Jian scoffed and released her grip abruptly. At the same time, she extended her leg to kick Zhao Yishan's stomach. Bang! Zhao Yishan's fat body was directly sent flying. He fell to the ground with a plop. His fat body trembled as he fainted from the impact. Yun Jian didn't care. She walked to the door of room 6011 and took out a small blade. She held the blade with her fingers and spun it nimbly on the door lock. After a while, the door opened with a click. Breaking down doors was her specialty. In her previous life, she had snuck into all sorts of places to steal treasures to complete missions. Every time, she would silently unlock the door and sneak out unscathed. The moment the door opened, Yun Jian stepped in. Ce's tall figure stood by her side. When Yun Jian and Ce entered the room together, they saw two people hugging each other on the bed. To be exact, Yun Yi was the only one who had his eyes closed. The floor was littered with messy clothes. It was hard for one not to think of the wrong things when they saw such a scene. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched when she saw this scene. She saw her brother lying on the bed with a young girl who was about her age. The two of them were covered with a blanket. The young girl's cute and delicate face made people want to dote on her. Her delicate face was like a baby's face. Her beautiful face was so delicate that people couldn't take their eyes off of her. Unlike Yun Jian's delicate face, the young girl's face had a hint of childishness like a baby's, but there was an indescribable beauty to it. However, what surprised Yun Jian wasn't that the young girl was lying on the bed with her brother Yun Yi. Compared to the young girl and her brother Yun Yi hugging each other naked, the young girl's identity was even more shocking. She was Yun Jian's acquaintance. This young girl was a high-ranking member of the Kosha mercenaries. The young girl's code name was Poison Lady. In the Kosha mercenaries, she was originally Snake, Lizard's disciple. However, the young girl's poison skills were even worse than Snake, Lizard's. Hence, in her previous life, Yun Jian would often bring her along on missions. It could be said that other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, Poison Lady was Yun Jian's biggest partner. However, Poison Lady's ranking in the Kosha mercenaries wasn't one of the top few. This could be seen from Poison Lady's code name. Poison Lady, Poison Lady. The young girl was an expert in using poison. However, other than poison, she didn't know anything else. Chapter 310. Lady Venom's identity in Kosha mercenaries was different from Tanuki's. Tanuki, who came to give Yun Jian her beloved Ferrari LaFerrari, was different from Lady Venom. Tanuki was Snake, Lizard's subordinate, while Lady Venom was Snake, Lizard's disciple. Both Tanuki and Lady Venom had baby faces and were petite and adorable, but Lady Venom was about 10 years younger than Tanuki. More importantly, Lady Venom was not capable, but she was chosen by Snake Lizard to be her disciple because of her skill in using poison. Lady Venom's skill in using poison was something that even Yunjian was impressed by. Therefore, other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, Lady Venom was Yunjian's right-hand man. Her skill in using poison was a great help to Yunjian. Other than her mature-sounding code name, Lady Venom also had a nice name, Qinyu. As Yunjian stared unblinkingly at Qinyu noticed Yunjian as well. Qinyu had come to look for Yunjian under Snake Lizard's instruction. It could be said that she came to Longmen City to look for the boss of kosher mercenaries, Yunjian. Before she came, Snake Lizard had described Yunjian's recent situation to her as much as possible, and she had seen Yunjian's photo in advance. The boss of kosher mercenaries had become someone else. Snake Lizard did not mention this to anyone else other than Qinyu. Qinyu came to Longmen City to look for Yunjian because she was Snake Lizard's disciple despite being Snake Lizard's assistant in her past life. It was also because Qinyu was the person closest to Yunjian in her past life that Snake Lizard did not hide the fact that Yunjian had been reborn as someone else. It was just that Qinyu did not expect that she would still be so clumsy that she forgot to close the door when she showered. She did not expect a boy to barge in. A boy who was drugged. In spite of it, nothing happened between Qinyu and Yun-Yi. She hid on the bed with Yun-Yi because she was helping Yun-Yi with the antidote. The drug was difficult to detoxify. Yun-Yi, who was drugged, would be doomed if there was no other woman around. However, it was different for Qinyu, who was an expert in detoxification. She could detoxify all poisons in the world. This was why she was brought by Yunjian's side. In spite of it, Qinyu did not expect Yunjian to barge in when she was cooling Yun-Yi with her body to detoxify him. Yunjian was the boss of kosher mercenaries. Slaying, we didn't do it. Qinyu was slaying God, was slaying God, was slaying God, was slaying Qing, was slaying God. Other than being proficient in using poison, Qinyu was no different from an ordinary girl. Yunjian narrowed her eyes, knowing that Qinyu knew who she was. Snake Lizard must have asked Qinyu to come to Longmen City. In fact, Qinyu was a key figure in her annihilation of kosher mercenaries in her past life. Other than Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard's brute strength, Qinyu's poison was colorless and tasteless. Snake Lizard was an expert in using poison as well, but compared to Qinyu, she was a notch weaker. Chapter 311. Yunjian's heart was pounding as she watched the scene unfold before her. She suppressed her surprise and was too embarrassed to stay any longer when she saw that her brother, Yun-Yi, had woken up. After all, she had never expected such a scene. In spite of it, she was thankful that the girl sleeping next to Yun-Yi was not Chen Yubing, regardless of whether Qinyu and Yun-Yi had done anything. Otherwise, with Chen Yubing's character, she might not stop until she caused more trouble. You guys? Cough cough, we'll head out first. Come out once you're dressed. Yunjian gave Qinyu a look. Qinyu was the one who had stayed the longest by Yunjian's side in his past life. Yunjian would usually bring her along when he went out on a mission, so Qinyu naturally understood the meaning behind Yunjian's look. Qinyu nodded with a lowered head. Yunjian then dragged Ce out. Yun-Yi, who was in the room, turned over and woke up. Qinyu's petite figure was the first thing he saw when he came back to his senses, but Yun-Yi was stunned at the same time. He suddenly recalled the scene before he fainted. He had been drugged and had managed to escape. Then he saw a door and rushed in. Later on, he even saw a slender young girl taking a bath, and he immediately hugged her. What happened after that? He could not remember what happened after that at all. Qinyu, on the other hand, felt her eyelids twitch when Yun-Yi's handsome face stared at her. Anyone with a discerning eye would be able to see what was going on in this situation. Yun-Yi was not stupid. He did not know if he had done anything to the girl, but the girl was lying on the bed with him innocently. Based on this point alone, he was a bastard. I'm sorry. Yun-Yi tapped his forehead with his fair, slender fingers and spat out, I'll be responsible for you. Qinyu stared at Yun-Yi blankly. She only wanted to say that nothing had happened between them. Outside the room, Yun Jian and Si were standing in the corridor of the hotel. Yun Jian didn't look too upset. In fact, as long as Chen Yubing was not lying on Yun Yi's bed, Yun Jian would not blame herself. Not long after, Yun Yi and Qin Yu walked out of the house neatly dressed. Qin Yu's face was pinkish and rosy, looking bitter. Yun Yi wasn't any better. After all, he was an adolescent boy, and Yun Yi was not the kind of boy who would mess around. He had never held a girl's hand other than his sister's since he was young, let alone sleeping naked on the same bed with a girl. "Come with me," Yun Jian said, looking at Qin Yu. Qin Yu looked up at Yun Jian and followed him. Yun Yi, on the other hand, thought that Yun Jian knew that he was sleeping with Qin Yu. He panicked at the thought of his sister's formidable skills. "Xiao Jian, it's my fault. I accidentally ruined the girl's innocence. Don't hit the girl." Before Yun Yi could finish, however, he was cut off by Yun Jian. "Don't worry, I won't eat her up," Yun Jian said with a chuckle. It was normal for Yun Yi to not know that she knew Qin Yu. Chapter 312. When she came to a quiet corner with Yun Jian, Qin Yu's tender and adorable baby face was flushed with a tinge of redness. Once they were away from Yun Yi and Si, Qin Yu started to explain. "Sha, we didn't do anything." "I know." Yun Jian interrupted Qin Yu, pressing her lips together and changing the topic. "Did you come to Longmen City to look for me?" Once Yun Jian changed the topic, Qin Yu did not dwell on the embarrassing incident just now. She nodded, still retaining the shyness of a young girl in her movements. Master asked me to look for you." If Yun Jian had not witnessed Qin Yu's poisoning skills, she might have believed that Qin Yu was just an ordinary girl. You can stay in Longmen City then," Yun Jian continued. "Really?" Qin Yu asked in surprise. Qin Yu still retained the lively and adorable attitude of a young girl. Snake. Lizard had taken Qin Yu as her disciple when she was very young and had been following Yun Jian on Snake. Lizard's behalf since then. Qin Yu's excellent poisoning skills had allowed her to avoid the brutal assassin or secret agent training. In spite of that, Qin Yu still had the basic ability to protect herself. After all, if she could not even protect herself, Qin Yu would not have the chance to stay by Yun Jian's side. She, Yun Jian, never wanted useless people by her side. "You're about the same age as me now. Follow me as a student from now on," Yun Jian said to Qin Yu with a nod. She usually did not have any big secrets in front of Qin Yu. Qin Yu, on the other hand, was one of the people who had been with her the longest, just like Snake, Lizard and Tiger. "Leopard, I'm going to enroll?" Qin Yu pointed at herself in surprise and asked Yun Jian. "That's right." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and nodded before she continued to ask Qin Yu, "How's the group of old things?" Those old bastards were the lackeys of the previous boss of the Kosha mercenaries. Qin Yu came from the Kosha mercenaries, so she must know more about these things. It was only then that Qin Yu spoke. "Master said that they'll be conducting a large-scale operation soon, yes. Come with me to the Kosha mercenaries in a few days," Yun Jian said. Qin Yu nodded in agreement. When it came to Yun Jian's arrangement, Qin Yu was just like Snake, Lizard, Tiger, Leopard. When Yun Jian and Qin Yu walked out from the corner, they saw Ce and Yun Yi finishing their conversation. Qin Yu could not help blushing when she saw Yun Yi. "Brother, you guys go back first," Yun Jian said to Yun. "Xiao Jian, you found me so quickly. Do you know who drugged me?" Yun Yi spoke through gritted teeth. Of course, he hated the person who drugged her. If it were not for that person, he would not have allowed the girl to lose her chastity for no reason. Although Yun Yi knew that he did not really do anything to the girl, the fact that the two of them were hugging each other naked was not a pleasant thing to say. "Chen Yubing." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes with a murderous glint before she told Yun, "Brother, I'll handle this for you." How dare Chen Yubing set her eyes on her brother? Then, was she ready to accept her wrath? Chapter 313. In the end, Yun Jian got Ce to drive Yun Yi home first while Qin Yu followed Yun Jian. Ce was very obedient to Yun Jian. Once he heard that Yun Jian wanted him to bring his future brother-in-law home first, he quickly dragged him away. "Slaying, he's your brother?" Qingyu looked up at Yunjian and asked shyly. Yunjian grinned and patted Qingyu's shoulder, saying casually, "Let's go. It's rare for us to meet again after our last parting. Let's do something big." Everyone knew that slaying God loved money. Look, she had just been reborn in Longmen City for a few months and had already started new cruise. Whatever capital she had invested, she was earning back double now. In her past life, Yunjian's mission had never been less than $10 million. Yunjian had been diligent and happy in accepting missions in her past life. Of course, when Yunjian accepted a lot of missions, she would even bring Qingyu with her for convenience. Qingyu would poison a bunch of people, but what about Yunjian? She would kill when she had to and sneak when she had to. Both of them had completed many missions together. Qingyu chuckled when she heard that they were going to do something big and followed Yunjian eagerly. As for Qinyubing, she was certain that Yun-Yi would not be able to escape from her this time. She had even drugged herself so that her scheme could be carried out smoothly. Of course, Qinyubing came to the hotel later than Yunjian and Si. She felt that there was no need for her to rush. Yun-Yi was already in her hands now, she had to take it slow. In order to make sure that her trick was flawless, she even ran home to get the only color camera in her house. When Qinyubing took the camera, however, she swallowed the aphrodisiac. Yao Yao ran excitedly from home to the 6th floor of the hotel. When she arrived at the hotel room that she had booked, she was knocked unconscious by someone with a stick. When she woke up again, Qinyubing had been tied up by Yunjian. What was going on? Qinyubing seemed to have suddenly realized the danger. She looked at Yunjian in horror and asked, "Why are you here?" Yunjian sneered when she heard Qinyubing ask her why she was here. She stared coldly at Qinyubing and her eyes flashed with a strong sense of viciousness. "What do you think? What do you want to do to me?" Qinyubing raised her voice in fear. At this time, Qinyubing felt that the aphrodisiac in her body began to take effect. She gave herself an aphrodisiac too, Qingyu told Yunjian as she looked at Qinyubing. Qingyu was an expert in using poison. At the same time, she was well versed in all kinds of medicine, so she could tell at first glance that Qinyubing had given herself an aphrodisiac too. Yunjian did not expect Qinyubing to give herself that kind of medicine. She looked disgusted and turned to look at Qingyu with a smirk. "Since she likes this medicine so much, give her something stronger." What do you want to do to me?" Qinyubing screamed when she heard Yunjian. She looked at Yunjian in extreme fear and screamed, "I'll be generous and let you experience what you wanted to do to my brother." Yunjian smirked maliciously. Chapter 3:14. Sister Jian, I've recently developed a super potent aphrodisiac. I was worried that no one would test it on me. Qingyu pouted, a wicked smirk on her adorable doll-like face. She told Yunjian. In her past life, Qingyu had always called Yunjian Sling, but their identities were different now. Moreover, Yunjian did not show up as slaying god, so Qingyu called her Sister Jian instead. Use it on her and throw her out on the street. Yunjian recollected her disgust and stood up to declare her sovereignty. "No, you can't do this to me, you can't do this to me. I won't let you go if you do this to me." Qinyubing shrieked again when she heard Yunjian's judgment. "I'll be waiting." Yunjian chuckled and looked at Qinyubing in disdain, continuing, "Do you think I'll give you a chance to retaliate? Qinyubing, you should have expected this day to come since you dared to hit on my brother." "Sister Jian, the injection is ready," Qingyu told Yunjian as she came over with a syringe in her hand. Yunjian nodded, ignoring Qinyubing who screamed and cried and begged for mercy. Qingyu looked sweet, but she was born with the ability to concoct and administer poison. Her hand that held the syringe plunged the syringe into Qinyubing's body mercilessly. Qinyubing's eyes rolled back and she fainted. There was an exciting striptease going on the street. Qinyubing's mouth was agape as she unconsciously touched her skin on the crowded street, tearing off piece after piece of underwear. Qinyubing wasn't particularly ugly. Her skin was slightly white, and at this moment, she was lying on the crowded street, constantly pulling off her clothes. She was moaning softly, "I'm hot, hot. As more and more people gathered around, Chen Yubing became more and more excited as she tore at her clothes. In the end, she even tore off her underwear. At this moment, Yun Yi's classmates walked out of the karaoke hall together. Seeing a lot of people on the street, they ran over to take a look out of curiosity. He wouldn't have known if he didn't look, but when he did, he was shocked. It turned out to be Chen Yubing taking off her clothes in front of everyone on the street. Furthermore, he was completely naked. And it's Chen Yubing. A student pointed at Chen Yubing, who was lying on the ground, and shouted in shock and fear. Not far from the main street, Yun Jian's tall and slender figure was wrapped in a loose down jacket. The jacket couldn't cover her thin and slender body. Her long black hair was stuck to her back in a high ponytail, making Yun Jian look very energetic. On the other side, Chen Yubing had completely lost her face. From now on, she would be despised by everyone because of her actions today. This was the outcome of those who dared to lay their hands on Yun Jian's brother. Sister Jian, that's it? You're not going to kill her? Qin Yu, who stood aside, blinked and asked in surprise. Forget about a woman like Chen Yubing who schemed against Yun Jian's brother. Yun Jian in her past life would have killed those who spoke rudely. According to Yun Jian's style in her past life, it would be a miracle if she did not chop Chen Yubing into pieces. That was why Qin Yu was surprised. She had a baby face and mediocre skills, but she was used to fighting and killing when she was with Yun Jian. Chapter 3:15. After what had happened, Yun Yi would keep an eye out in the future, but no one had expected Chen Yubing to do something like this. In spite of it, Chen Yubing had really met her retribution. The next day, shocking news spread from Yun Yi's school. Everyone in the school knew that Chen Yubing was having a gathering with her classmates on a certain street yesterday, but for some reason, she had taken off her clothes on the street and was completely naked in the end. Some called her an exhibitionist while others called her a slut who could not help feeling lonely without a man. Chen Yubing was completely ruined here. In spite of this, it was no longer important because Chen Yubing transferred schools the next day and no one knew where she had gone to. At the same time, Yun Jian had already enrolled Qin Yu in school using New Cruz's name. Qin Yu was about the same age as Yun Jian. She was assigned to Yun Jian's class and became Yun Jian's classmate. Not everyone could enroll in Longmen E Junior High School, especially since Qin Yu was a transfer student. It was even more difficult to arrange for her to enroll directly. In spite of it, Yun Jian's New Cruz had already established a foothold in Longmen City. Yun Jian only had to get Zhang Jifan to greet the headmaster of Longmen E Junior High School, and Qin Yu was successfully enrolled. After Qin Yu became Yun Jian's classmate, she got along well with Chen Sini, which surprised Yun Jian. Qin Yu and Chen Sini got to know each other quickly once they met. Both of them had endless things to talk about with Yun Jian around, nearly causing Yun Jian's ears to grow calluses. Everything seemed to have settled down. This weekend, Qin Yu and Chen Sini went shopping in the neighboring city early in the morning. They went there because while Longmen City was a city with convenient transportation and overseas trade, there was a place called the World Trade Center in Qingshan City that was closest to Longmen City. It was a huge shopping mall that was famous in the country. The World Trade Center was the must-visit place in Zhe Province. This was because the World Trade Center was not only the place with the most overseas transactions in Z country. Here, as long as there were domestic and foreign items, they could be bought. When girls went shopping for clothes, the World Trade Center was undoubtedly the first choice. Because here, one could appreciate the style of clothing from all over the world. When Yun Jian was reborn in Zhe Province's Longmen City, she had never been to the World Trade Center in Qingshan City, which was the closest to Longmen City. In addition, she was not going to the military training camp this week, and the coldest winter was coming. She also planned to buy some warm clothes for Xiao Yunju. Therefore, he followed Qin Yu, Chen Sini, and took Xiao Yunju on the bus to Qingshan City. She was going to the World Trade Center to pick out some warm clothes for Xiao Yunju. When Ce heard that Yun Jian was bringing Xiao Yunju to Qingshan City, he followed them without a word. The group of 5 chose to take the bus to Qingshan City. Unexpectedly, the bus to Qingshan City was packed with people. It was so crowded that they would be squashed if they stood, let alone seats. Qin Yu was immobilized in the crowded bus. She even complained to Yun Jian, Oh my God, Sister Jian, I've never taken such a crowded bus in my life. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was pulling the handle of the bus driver as she shielded Xiao Yunju with one hand. It was Si Yi's first time taking the bus, and it was also his first time taking such a crowded bus. In spite of it, he kept one hand shielding Yun Jian as he stood behind Yun Jian to watch over Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju. They looked like newlyweds bringing their children out for a vacation. A middle-aged woman in her 40s could not take it anymore. She gave up her seat and told Yun Jian, "Young lady, I'll let you have my seat. It's not easy for a young lady like you to take care of a child." It was obvious that the woman saw Yun Jian, Si Yi and Xiao Yunju as a family. Chapter 316. Thank you. Si Yi was delighted to hear the woman's misunderstanding. Before Yun Jian could speak, he took over for her and pulled Yun Jian to the seat the woman had vacated, letting Yun Jian carry Xiao Yunju. Si Yi's heartwarming gesture made the woman exclaim, "Ah, it's so good to be young." Yun Jian's cheeks flushed, but she accepted the woman's kindness without explaining anything. She thought that she could squeeze in with the crowd, but Xiao Yunju was small and it was difficult for him to stand in the crowded bus. If he was not careful, he might bump into something. Therefore, Yun Jian accepted the woman's kindness and thanked her. Xiao Yunju was being carried in Yun Jian's arms obediently. He blinked his large eyes, his long eyelashes fluttering. His thin and frail body did not look like an 8-year-old child. Xiao Yunju looked more childish and was much shorter than his peers. It was probably because this body had not been well nourished in the past that he looked like he was 4 or 5 years old at most. Yun Jian was dressed more maturely than usual today, which was a stark contrast to her usual 15 or 16-year-old face. That was why the woman had misunderstood that Yun Jian was Yun Jian's child. After all, there were girls who became mothers at such a young age. It was fortunate that Qingshan City was not far from Longmen City. Qin Yu, Qin Sini, and Si Yi, who did not have seats, only stood for about 45 minutes before they reached the final stop. When they reached the final stop, they took the second bus and arrived at the World Trade Center, which was also the entrance of the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center located in Qingshan City had a daily turnover of $10 million. This undoubtedly made the World Trade Center the most famous shopping mall in the area. Yun Jian got off the second bus and walked in front holding Xiao Yunju's hand. Si Yi followed beside her. Qin Yu and Qin Sini held hands as they were dazed by the dazzling array of merchandise. They had no idea where they had run off to. Qin Yu had been through a lot, but she still had the innocent heart of a young girl. Moreover, she was with her new friend, Qin Sini. Both of them looked around and walked away quickly. Before Qin Yu and Qin Sini walked away, however, they set a meeting place with Yun Jian. Yun Jian then grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and went shopping on the menswear street. The entire street was filled with menswear, and the children's wear that was suitable for Xiao Yunju was on this street as well. Yun Jian grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and was about to step into a store that sold children's wear with Si Yi when a surprised voice came from the side. "It's you?" The surprised male voice made Yun Jian's eyelids twitch. It was then that Yun Jian recognized the owner of the ecstatic voice. Yun Jian frowned slightly when she saw the person but did not pay attention to him right away. The person thought that Yun Jian did not remember him. He was a little disappointed but also surprised. "Don't you remember me? I'm Chen Yan. We met last time at Weiwu Mountain." Of course, it was not that Yun Jian did not remember him, but she did not want to bother with him. She didn't expect to meet someone she had met before here. Yun Jian replied faintly. Si Yi stood aside and looked at the man who had appeared out of nowhere. A glint flashed across his eagle-like eyes. Chen Yan did not expect to meet the girl he had been thinking about last time here. He did not even notice Si Yi, who was standing beside Yun Jian, and introduced himself in a friendlier manner to Yun Jian. Chapter 317. Yun Jian didn't answer him. Even though Yun Jian didn't answer, Chen Yan wasn't disheartened. When he first saw Yun Jian at Weiwu Mountain, Chen Yan felt that his spring had arrived. Yun Jian's graceful figure and her beautiful and delicate face had always been deeply imprinted in Chen Yan's heart. It felt as if a small sapling had suddenly sprouted when it met the sun. Chen Yan had a few girlfriends before, so he quickly realized that he had fallen in love with Yun Jian at first sight. However, he didn't expect to meet her here after they parted that day. This made Chen Yan feel that they were definitely fated to meet. He decided that he would definitely woo her. Chen Yan suddenly stretched out his hand to grab Yun Jian's small hand as he muttered, "It's fate that brought us together. I'm not a bad person. It means that we are fated to meet each other. Let's go, I'll show you around." However, before Chen Yan's hand could even touch a strand of Yun Jian's hair, Yun Jian was pulled into Si Yi's embrace. Si Yi frowned. If that gaze could kill, Chen Yan would have died 1,000,000 times over. "Don't touch my woman." Si immediately declared his sovereignty. Yun Jian was pulled into his embrace. She only felt that she was covered by a warm chest and her hand was holding onto the confused Xiao Yunji. "What? Your woman?" Chen Yan didn't notice Si Yi at first, but now, even if he was blind, he should have sensed Si Yi's presence. Si Yi was about half a head taller than Chen Yan, so Chen Yan had to look up to meet Si Yi's eyes. When Chen Yan heard Si say that Yun Jian was his woman, his eyelids twitched and he looked disappointed. "Sister, what did brother Si Yi mean when he said that you're his woman? Does that mean that sister will be able to accompany brother Si Yi forever? Then Xiao Zhu also wants big sister to become Xiao Zhu's woman, okay?" Xiao Yunzhu looked at them talking. He rubbed his head as if he was thinking for a long time before saying these words. Yun Jian was almost frightened by Xiao Yunzhu's innocent words. She broke free from Si Yi's embrace and squatted down to rub Xiao Yunzhu's head. Finally, she stood up and slapped Si Yi's hand. "Don't talk nonsense." With Yun Jian's pat, Si felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He smiled slightly and reached out to grab Yun Jian's slender hands, interlocking their fingers. When Chen Yan saw Si holding Yun Jian's hand, his expression turned slightly ugly. However, when he thought about how Yun Jian had said to Si, "Don't talk nonsense," his disappointed expression immediately recovered. It seemed like this guy's feelings for Yun Jian were one-sided, but Yun Jian didn't like him. That must be it, Chen Yan thought to himself. Although this guy was handsome and had good features, he admitted that he couldn't compare to him. But what if they were to compete in strength? Could this guy compare to him, who was the vice president of the school's taekwondo club and had won countless championships in various taekwondo, wushu, sanda, and other activities? So what if he was good-looking? He was still a gigolo. How could he be as manly as him? When he thought of this, Chen Yan started scolding Si. "Didn't you realize that she doesn't like you? You should know your place. If you're a man, you shouldn't touch a girl like this." As Chen Yan spoke, he reached out to pat Si Yi's hand that was holding Yun Jian's hand. In Chen Yan's opinion, Si was at most a gigolo. So what if he was handsome? Chapter 318. Shen Yan thought about it and decided to do it. He reached out his hand and wanted to slap Si Yi's hand away from Yun Jian's. He wanted to use this opportunity to throw Si Yi to the ground using taekwondo moves. If he presented himself in such a cool manner in front of Yun Jian, she would definitely think that he was especially manly. Just as Shen Yan was about to grab Si Yi smugly and throw him to the ground in front of all the passers-by, Si, a fair and slender hand with a black pocket watch on the wrist, seemed to know what he was going to do in the next second. That well-defined hand grabbed Shen Yan's elbow a few steps faster than him. Si Yi reached out and grabbed Shen Yan's elbow. His other hand that was holding Yun Jian's hand didn't move. When his other hand touched Shen Yan's hand, he twisted Shen Yan's elbow joint. Kacha, kacha, kacha. The sound of bones breaking could be heard one after another. In the next second, Shen Yan's howl resounded through the sky. Below Shen Yan's elbow, all the bones in his hand were dislocated by Si. The heart-wrenching pain spread through Shen Yan's elbow. His wailing and howling attracted the attention of passers-by. Apart from the intense pain from his elbow, Shen Yan was also suffering from immense fear in his heart. She had thought that Si was a pretty boy, a useless piece of trash with a handsome face but no ability. However, when Si attacked just now, his speed was so fast that he couldn't even see it with his naked eye. Was that even a human speed? Shen Yan swore that even the head coach of the International Taekwondo Club, whom he had the honor of meeting, wasn't as good as Si. This was the first time Xin Yan had experienced the feeling of living a life worse than death. At this moment, Si had already retracted his hand. One of his hands was still holding on to Yun Jian, while the other hand that had touched Xin Yan took out a piece of tissue from his pocket. He wiped the hand that had touched Xin Yan with the tissue, then threw the tissue into the air. The tissue flew in an arc in the air for a while before it was thrown accurately into a circular trash can more than 10 meters away from them. The surrounding people who saw this opened their mouths wide and stared dumbfoundedly at the tall figure. A handsome man who was 185 meters tall with short black hair and dressed in simple black stood in the middle. His big palm was still holding the small hand of a young girl. He looked at Chen Yan, whose elbow had been dislocated, wantonly and spat out a domineering and elegant word between his thin lips. Get lost. Some people were born with the air of a king. Ce was undoubtedly one of them, and he was one of the best among them. Ce was now fuming with anger. How could a piece of trash like him taint his woman? Yun Jian pursed her lips and covered Xiao Yunju's eyes to prevent him from seeing this scene. She personally didn't like Xin Yan very much. Hence, she didn't intend to pay any attention to him. Shen Yan thought that she and Si didn't know what he was doing, but how could she and Si not be willing to come out? Let's go. Yun Jian turned to Si and said. However, Si's face was still gloomy. He grabbed Yun Jian's hand and left. At the same time, he pulled Yun Jian to a secluded corner where Xiao Yunju stood in front of Yun Jian. Ce leaned over Yun Jian. He pressed Yun Jian against the wall and said with a trace of anger, "You can only be mine." Chapter 319. Yun Jian's heart raced. She felt like her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. She did not understand why Ce was suddenly angry, but she covered Xiao Yunju's eyes with one hand and held Ce's head with the other, responding to his kiss for the first time. Everything else aside, she had feelings for Ce. The fluttering of her maiden's heart told her that she had feelings for him that were different from others. Both of them kissed until they were almost out of breath before Ce let go of Yun Jian. Xiao Yunju's eyes were covered throughout the entire process. Xiao Yunju, however, felt the odd atmosphere as well. He blinked his big eyes and looked up to ask Yun Jian, "Jie, why did you cover Xiao Zhu's eyes? Are you and Ce going to play hide-and-seek with Xiao Zhu?" Children's innocence was the most interesting but also the most ignorant. Yun Jian rubbed Xiao Yunju's head and turned to glare at Ce with a hint of complaint. "Let's go. Jie will buy you new clothes." Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked ahead first. Ce had both hands in his pockets. Watching Yun Jian walk ahead, he raised a handsome brow and followed her. By the time Yun Jian bought a few new warm clothes for Xiao Yunju, Qingyu and Chen Sini had already bought a bunch of things and were waiting for Yun Jian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju at the agreed spot. They had been shopping for the entire morning and had lunch near the World Trade Center before Yun Jian and the rest went home. The public transport from Qingshan City back to Longmen City was not as crowded as the public transport from Longmen City to Qingshan City. It was probably due to Qingshan City's outstanding transportation and trade. In addition, as the provincial capital of Zhe Province, Qingshan City's economic conditions were at the forefront of country Z. Therefore, there were more people going to Qingshan City. As for the bus back to Longmen City, it was enough for one person to take 2 seats. After the previous incident, Yun Jian had gradually taken Ce to heart. She also understood her own feelings. Her feelings for Ce were different from the feelings she had for Qin Yiru and her brother, Yun Yi. On the weekend night, Yun Jian carried her school bag and went to school as usual. But before she could walk out of the house, she was blocked by a tall figure. Ce had his hands in his pockets. One of his legs was slightly curled up as he leaned against the wall, waiting for her. "I'm going away for a while. If you need my help in the kosher mercenaries, you can contact Shui Ying anytime." Ce went up to rub Yun Jian's head when he saw her walking over. As he spoke, his eyes stared straight at her. The indulgence in his words was not concealed at all. "Be careful," Yun Jian could not help reminding him. Ce was stunned. The corners of his handsome lips curled into a handsome smile. She was concerned about him. Carrying her school bag, Yun Jian passed by a fork in the corner after she came out of her house. It was a secluded alley. At this moment, her eyes suddenly flickered. Not long after, a group of more than 10 people came from all directions and surrounded Yunjian. This group of people were all dressed in black, which made people involuntarily think of gangsters. A coquettishly dressed woman walked over from behind Yunjian while leaning against a plump man. Yunjian's eyes flickered as she took a good look at the woman's face. The woman who had changed her appearance was none other than Qin Yubing, who had tried to harm her brother, Yun Yi, some time ago. Qin Yubing looked completely different now. She had heavy makeup on her face as she snuggled in the man's arms who was in his 40s and old enough to be her father. Chapter 320. It had only been a few days and Qin Yubing had changed so drastically. Moreover, she was currently nestled in the arms of a man in his 40s. Yun Jian felt goosebumps rising all over her body at the sight alone. However, she never showed her feelings on her face. Yun Jian maintained her usual nonchalant expression as she stared at Qin Yubing. Qin Yubing was noticeably thinner than before. More importantly, she had taken off her student uniform and put on a very revealing off-shoulder top. She even wore a pair of high heels. The biggest change was her face. Her originally pretty face was now covered with makeup, and her face was now unrecognizable. The face covered in heavy makeup was currently staring at Yun Jian with a twisted expression. She looked like she wanted to cut Yun Jian into 1,000 pieces. "Kill me?" Yun Jian asked flippantly. Looking at the fat man beside Qin Yubing, she could roughly guess what Qin Yubing had done. In fact, what Qin Yubing had done was not far from Yun Jian's guess. The aphrodisiac that Qin Yubing had been drugged with last time was developed by Qin Yu. However, those who were drugged with it would lose consciousness for a short period of time and feel waves of heat flowing through their bodies. If the drugged person did not have a strong will, they would strip themselves naked in no time. As for what Qin Yubing had done afterward, Yun Jian had no idea. However, looking at how Qin Yubing was nestled in the man who was old enough to be her father, it was not hard to tell that she had latched onto this man's coattails. "Yun Jian, do you think you can do whatever you want in Longmen City just because you have some skills? I'm telling you, Qin Yubing, won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Qin Yubing's twisted smile was menacing. No one knew what she had gone through. After she woke up, she was lying naked on the road for everyone to see. She was ruined. Her future was ruined. However, Qin Yubing swore that she would take revenge on Yun Jian. In spite of it, Qin Yubing knew that Yun Jian had some skills. Last time, the yellow-haired man who wanted to deal with Yun Yi was defeated by Yun Jian. This time, Qin Yubing was hugging the fat middle-aged man she was snuggling against. He was a gangster. He was different from the weak yellow-haired guy from before. The middle-aged man was a gangster and the second in command of the Nine Valleys Gang, the second largest mafia group in Longmen City. People in the underworld called him Xiong Eru. Qin Yubing was determined to go against Yun Jian to the end. She was already ruined, so she was willing to give herself to Xiong Eru. This time, she had asked Xiong Eru to lead a group of people to surround Yun Jian in order to take revenge for what Yun Jian had done to her. In Qin Yubing's opinion, she hated Yun Jian so much that she was willing to exchange her body for power to deal with Yun Jian. "Brother Xiong, she's the one who bullied me. You must avenge me," Qin Yubing said as she pointed her finger at Yun Jian. Before she could finish, however, the atmosphere changed. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Not long after, a group of people rushed in from the front and back of the alley. A round-looking man led a group of men with guns over. The man went to Yun Jian and bowed respectfully at a 90 degrees angle to Yun Jian, saying respectfully, "Miss Yun, our boss invites you." Yun Jian could tell at a glance that the man was Su Zetian's subordinate and also a higher-up in Longmen City's top mafia group, Dragon Head Gang. When Xiong Eru, who was called Brother Xiong, saw this man and his group, his eyes widened, and there was a trace of indescribable fear in his eyes. He was the second in command of the Nine Valleys Gang, but the Nine Valleys Gang, the second largest mafia group in Longmen City, dared not offend people from the top mafia group, Dragon Head Gang. His temporary bed partner, Qin Yubing, who was just an ordinary junior high school girl whom he wanted to surround, Yun Jian, could command such respect from Dragon Head Gang's higher-ups. Chapter 321. The round-looking man was the underling of Longmen City's mafia boss, Su Ziyin. He was also a high-ranking member of Dragon Head Gang, Sun Jingwei. Yun Jian knew him. She had interacted with many of Dragon Head Gang's high-ranking members when she fought for Su Zetian in the tournament. Since her victory in the tournament, Su Zetian and the high-ranking members of Dragon Head Gang respected her even more. Yun Jian nodded softly, agreeing to Sun Jingwei's request. Su Zetian wanted to see her. Even though Su Zetian hadn't contacted her since the last challenge tournament, he was still the father of her brother's best friend. Moreover, Su Zetian was also a member of the Kosha mercenaries. His position was low, but she was not one to put on airs. "Miss Yun, please." Sun Jingwei gestured for permission, intending to let Yun Jian go first. Just as Yun Jian took a step forward, Chen Yubing's vengeful voice rang again. "Wait! Yun Jian, don't think you can leave so easily." Chen Yubing was a little afraid of Sun Jingwei and his men with guns, but she had heard Xiong Eru bragging so much when she had sex with him that she thought he was a fearless person in Longmen City. Moreover, Xiong Eru had told Chen Yubing that he would seek justice from Yun Jian for her before they came. How could Chen Yubing sit still when she saw that Yun Jian was leaving? She shouted angrily at once. "Yun Jian, do you think it'll work just because you found a helper? Ha, brother Xiong will definitely kill you for me." Chen Yubing snuggled up to Xiong Eru. Her round breasts were almost touching Xiong Eru's chest. A teenage girl with a man old enough to be her father. It was an unflattering sight. "Isn't that right, brother Xiong?" Chen Yubing, on the other hand, seemed to want Xiong Eru's guarantee. She leaned closer to Xiong Eru. To Chen Yubing, she had sacrificed her body to make a deal with Xiong Eru in order to take revenge on Yun Jian, who had ruined her reputation. She did not believe that she could not destroy Yun Jian. Listening to Chen Yubing's confident words and looking at how she leaned on the man, Yun Jian could not help scoffing with a small smile. "What are you laughing at? Brother Xiong, she's bullying me. You have to help me. You said you'll help me." In bed, brother Xiong had promised her that he would help her get rid of Yun Jian, whom she hated the most. This was why Chen Yubing had been serving Xiong Eru with all her hearts. Otherwise, how could a young girl like Chen Yubing be willing to face a man who was as old as her father every day? She wasn't a fool, so how could she be willing to do that? "Xiong Eru, Miss Yun is an honored guest of our Dragon Head Gang. She's someone that even our boss has to respect. Our boss said that whoever dares to touch Miss Yun in Longmen City will be going against Dragon Head Gang." Sun Jingwei obviously knew Xiong Eru. He spoke to Xiong Eru with a threatening tone. Everyone knew that Dragon Head Gang was the top mafia group in Longmen City, while the Nine Valleys Gang could only be ranked second. Even the Nine Valleys Gang's boss dared not go against Dragon Head Gang, let alone Xiong Eru. Chapter 322. When Xiong Eru and Chen Yubing were having S*X, he had indeed bragged about his abilities and even boasted that there was no one in Longmen City that he could not touch. Chen Yubing was vengeful and was tricked by Xiong Eru. Not only did she offer her body to him, she was also slapped in return. Chen Yubing, who was slapped to the ground by Xiong Eru, had mixed feelings. Holding the side of her face that was slapped, her small eyes narrowed. "Big brother Xiong, why you didn't keep your word? You promised me." Chen Yubing didn't realize that something was wrong. She stared at Xiong Eru with her eyes wide open. Her face was filled with disbelief and malevolence. King Hell, I almost ruined my future because of you. The person you King offended is someone protected by Dragon Head Gang's boss, and you dare ask me to avenge you. Xiong Eru slapped Chen Yubing in front of Yun Jian and Sun Jingwei. Xiong Eru was definitely a despicable person. The fact that he could lay his hands on the woman in his arms earlier proved that he was not a good person. In spite of it, Xiong Eru was sly and cunning. He could think of ways to resolve problems in time. This was the most important skill in the underworld. King B***, how dare you order me around? CK your whole family. Without needing Yun Jian to do anything, Xiong Eru picked up Chen Yubing's head and messed up her hair before slamming it to the ground. It was as if he was treating a prisoner. He did not treat Chen Yubing as a human being at all. Chen Yubing felt like a knife was being twisted in her heart. She cried out in pain, but her mouth opened and closed in the end, unable to utter a single word. In the end, Chen Yubing's head was slammed to the ground by Xiong Eru until she bled and fainted completely. Chen Yubing, who was originally bright and beautiful, seemed to have completely fallen into a quagmire. She was as silent as death. Xiong Eru didn't even look at Chen Yubing, who had once been in love with him. He walked over with a smile, stood in front of Sun Zhengwei, and said to Yun Jian in a flattering tone, "I was blind just now and offended you. I've already taught this shameless woman a lesson. I hope the two of you can forgive me." Xiong Eru didn't have any other skills, but he was very good at flattering people. This was especially true for Chen Yubing. After all, Chen Yubing was a woman who had been with him for a period of time. In the end, because of Chen Yubing, Xiong Eru had almost harmed him. However, Xiong Eru had used the most direct method to make up for what he had almost done wrong. Judging from his personality, Xiong Eru wasn't a pushover. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She would not sympathize with Chen Yubing. Chen Yubing was purely reaping what she had sown. She deserved this retribution. Yun Jian ignored Xiong Eru and didn't look at the unconscious Chen Yubing. She turned around and left with Sun Jingwei. This was the way of the world. If one wasn't strong, especially a woman, and wanted to rely on a man to get to the top, what awaited her could be a vicious beating or a cruel betrayal at any time. And Chen Yubing was undoubtedly one of them. Yun Jian didn't go to the evening self-study session. She took a car with Sun Jingwei and soon arrived at the headquarters of the Dragon Head Gang, in front of a decent-looking tall building. Chapter 323. The higher-ups of Dragon Head Gang were having a meeting in the conference room. Once Yun Jian followed Sun Jingwei inside, all the higher-ups in Dragon Head Gang stood up at once. Although no one knew who Yun Jian was, no one could forget Yun Jian's stunning performance in the challenge tournament. Even the higher-ups who had a particular opinion of Yun Jian had to keep quiet when they saw Yun Jian. "Miss Yun, you're here." Standing among the higher-ups, Su Zetian, who was dressed formally, did not look old. He walked toward Yun Jian, his respect for Yun Jian evident from his solemn expression. "Why did you send someone to look for me?" Yun Jian did not like to beat around the bush, going straight to the point. Su Zetian hadn't looked for her since the last challenge tournament. In fact, Yun Jian was not close to him, but they bumped into each other often. She often saw her brother, Yun Yi, and Su Haokol playing together. Su Haokol was Su Zetian's son, so it was only natural that they would bump into each other when they walked together. "Miss Yun, it's like this," Su Zetian said. He paused for a moment before continuing. "We, Dragon Head Gang, are the top mafia group in Longmen City and also the mafia representative of Longmen City. In fact, a national mafia tea party will be held in the underworld a few days later. The organized mafia group will invite the mafia bosses from all over the country to attend the tea party along with their experts." The nationwide mafia tea party was, to put it bluntly, a competition of skills. It was a gathering where all the major gangs sent their experts to learn from each other. There'll also be a ranking of the experts from all the major provinces and cities participating in the mafia group's strength. Therefore, on behalf of our Dragon Head Gang, I sincerely hope that you can join our Dragon Head Gang and participate in this tea party as one of our experts. Su Zetian said sincerely, but at the same time he stared at Yun Jian without blinking. To put it bluntly, the reason why Su Zetian asked Sun Jingwei to invite Yun Jian over was to invite her to join the Dragon Head Gang. Secondly, he wanted her to attend the tea party organized by all the gangs in the country as a member of Dragon Head Gang. Okay. After hearing Su Zetian's words, Yun Jian wasn't in a hurry to agree. She pursed her lips and raised her eyebrows. She then asked Su Zetian in a probing tone, "Then what are the benefits?" If he wanted her to help him attend such a gathering, he would naturally want some benefits. As the saying goes, one should not receive a reward for nothing. Even if Su Zetian was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, Yun Jian would treat him equally. As long as Miss Yun agrees, then I, Su Zetian, will agree to any request you make. Su Zetian said boldly. This was probably the biggest promise that a mafia boss of a city could make. Although Su Zetian was only a mafia boss in a small Longmen city, the area of influence he had was not small. There were thousands of people in Dragon Head Gang. It was a considerable force. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and smirked. Pressing her red lips together, she asked softly, "What if I want the entire Dragon Head Gang? Will you give it to me?" Once she said that, not only was Su Zetian stunned, everyone else's eyelids twitched. What a bold claim. She wanted the entire Dragon Head Gang? Even if she won the challenge tournament and displayed her extraordinary ability, she was still a Dragon Head Gang member. Chapter 324. You're too arrogant, young lady. We sincerely invited you to join us because we respect you as a powerhouse. I didn't expect you to be so bold as to ask for more. One of the Dragon Head Gang's higher-ups shouted at Yun Jian. Not long after, some of the higher-ups followed suit and spoke to Yun Jian. To the audience, Yun Jian had won the previous match and crippled the boastful foreigner, which was quite satisfying to them, but it was not the same for Yun Jian. However, Su Zetian had sincerely invited her to join Dragon Head Gang this time. Yet, Yun Jian did not appreciate the gesture. She had actually raised conditions and boasted that she wanted to replace Su Zetian as the mafia boss and take over the entire Dragon Head Gang. Compared to the rage of the other higher-ups, Su Zetian was much calmer. He looked at Yun Jian with a slight frown. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was not flustered. She even walked leisurely to an empty seat not far away and sat down, crossing one leg over the other. The expression on her face was very relaxed, and she did not feel the slightest bit strange when the higher-ups present suddenly turned hostile and said that she did not know what was good for her. When the higher-ups were done scolding her, Yun Jian turned to look at them with a pair of round eyes and asked softly with a wink, "Thank you for the scolding. Let's sit down and have some tea first." Once they heard Yun Jian, their eyes bulged again. A few of the higher-ups were even glaring, looking like they were choked by Yun Jian's frivolous words. Compared to the higher-ups, Su Zetian was much calmer. He seemed to have sensed something as he stood where he was without saying a word. It was only when the other higher-ups had calmed down that Su Zetian walked to Yun Jian. "Miss Yun, please enlighten us." Su Zetian was already standing in front of Yun Jian, maintaining his respectful demeanor. Even Yun Jian could not help narrowing her eyes at his demeanor. Su Zetian was indeed the top mafia boss of Longmen City. His value was incomparable to the other higher-ups. Yun Jian stretched out her hand and tapped the long conference table with her finger. Then she stood up and turned to look at Su Zetian. "You're undoubtedly the mafia boss of Longmen City now. No one can take your position away from you. It's true that you're as stable as a mountain, but don't you want to go one step further and become the mafia boss of the entire Zhe province and even the entire country?" Su Zetian was a mafia boss, but his influence was limited to Longmen City. It could be said that he was nothing outside of Longmen City. Not only did Yun Jian's words make Su Zetian's heart skip a beat, but the higher-ups of Dragon Head Gang could not help feeling alarmed as well. Everyone was content with the status quo. They had thought about how to strengthen their position in Longmen City, but no one had thought about it and no one dared to think about it. Dragon Head Gang was deeply rooted in Longmen City. Could they move to Zhe province one day, becoming the #1 mafia in Zhe province? Leave Dragon Head Gang to me. I promise to make Dragon Head Gang the top mafia in Country Z. Otherwise I, Yun Jian, will write my name backwards. Yun Jian said abruptly, slamming the table as she stood up. For some reason, when the group heard Yun Jian's words again, they were not as resistant as they were in the beginning. Yes, everyone wanted to move forward. Now, it was as if Yun Jian had some kind of magical power. What she said made everyone's heart skip a beat. But at the same time, everyone was filled with a surge of hot blood. Chapter 325. When Su Zetian heard this, he immediately felt energized. Dragon Head Gang was actually a gang that Su Zetian had founded with his brothers. Dragon Head Gang was the culmination of half his life's effort and the expectations of all the higher-ups. It was not that Su Zetian had not thought about leading his brothers out of the tiny Longmen city and becoming the top gang in Jia province or even Country Z. However, he had never dared to do it because he did not have the capability nor the capability. Although he was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, Su Zetian was merely a nobody among the Kosha mercenaries. In spite of it, his heart that had been dormant for a long time finally surged again after he heard Yun Jian's words. What makes you so sure that you can do it? It has been decades since our boss led us to establish the Dragon Head Gang. In these decades, even a group of old men like us, who are hundreds of times more experienced than you, could not be so frivolous as to say such words. What makes you think that you can lead our brothers in the Dragon Head Gang to become the top gang in Z country? One of the higher-ups pointed out the problem once again. It did not mean that they would hand the gang over to Yun Jian just because she had stirred their blood with what she said just now. This was the result of half their life's effort and hard work to create what they had today. What made her think so? What made her think that they would hand Dragon Head Gang over to her just because she had said something that made everyone's blood boil? None of them were fools. All of them had the ability to distinguish right from wrong. Because I'm better than all of you. Because I'm the director of New Cruise. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and declared brashly, not mincing her words at all. What? New Cruise's director? After Yun Jian's words, someone was finally shocked and cried out. New Cruise was now a household name in Longmen City. It was a new company that had only been around for less than half a year, but it had achieved astounding results in less than half a year. Not long ago, the car show that New Cruise had helped organize was the largest car show that had never been heard of in the country. 3 limited edition supercars were displayed at the show. Which large-scale auto show could compete with it? Hence, New Cruise's name shot to fame overnight, not only in Longmen City but also in the national car exhibition scene. Moreover, New Cruise's sales of cars had reached a climax. It was no exaggeration to say that New Cruise had become a pioneer that led the advancement of the times. It took less than half a year for New Cruise to rise to this day. Now, Yun Jian, who claimed to be New Cruise's director, was standing in front of everyone. At this moment, it wasn't just the higher-ups of the Dragon Head Gang. Even Su Zetian was looking at the smiling girl in front of them in horror. They saw Yun Jian standing in front of the crowd. Her smile was very sweet, and within that faint smile, there was an aura that made everyone have no choice but to submit to her. Perhaps she could really lead Dragon Head Gang out of Longmen City and into Jia province, or even become the top gang in Country Z. Su Zetian clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and said resolutely to Yun Jian, "Fine. Dragon Head Gang is yours from now on." Su Zetian's decision was for the sake of his brothers in the gang. Chapter 326. Su Zetian was a good leader. From the time he led his brothers to establish Dragon Head Gang until now, he had always wished to lead them out of Longmen City. It was a wish that Su Zetian had always wanted, but he was incapable of making it happen. He had only wanted to invite Yun Jian to join Dragon Head Gang today but did not expect her to claim that she would take his place. As it turned out, Yun Jian's words struck a chord in Su Zetian's heart. His brothers had been with him for so many years, but they were still lingering in Longmen City. Su Zetian had long thought that if someone stronger than him were to lead them out of Longmen City one day, he would have to give up his position as Dragon Head Gang's boss immediately, even if he had to give up everything. Today, this person had appeared. Perhaps Yun Jian's age did not match her skills. It sounded impossible for her to take over Dragon Head Gang's position. However, Yun Jian was New Cruise's director. This was true because Su Zetian had seen Yun Jian's performance at the auto show that day. How could Yun Jian be an ordinary person when she could make New Cruise, which was founded less than half a year ago, rise so quickly and become a renowned company in Longmen City and even the country as a director? Therefore, Su Zetian agreed to take a gamble. Boss. The cries of Dragon Head Gang's higher-ups rang. Su Zetian closed his eyes and pondered for a long time before he gestured for everyone to quiet down. Say no more. I've already made up my mind. Su Zetian was a man who could let go of things easily. He waved his hand to signal for everyone to stop talking. Miss Yun, I'll hand Dragon Head Gang over to you. Su Zetian then turned to look at Yun Jian and expressed his opinion. Dragon Head Gang is the culmination of half of my life's work, so I hope you can manage the gang well. If possible, I hope you can lead my brothers out of Longmen City on my behalf. This was Su Zetian's plan. Yun Jian nodded and lifted her head slightly to look at Su Zetian before she turned to scan the crowd with a rare solemn gaze. Dragon Head Gang, your boss has been handed over to me. In that case, listen to me carefully. My gang doesn't allow any traitors or trash who ask for protection fees from the common people. If I find them, they will be killed without mercy. In addition, Dragon Head Gang will be renamed Falcon Hall from now on, but your boss will still be the one in charge of its management. In other words, Yun Jian was just acting as a hands-off boss. In the future, the management and arrangements of the gang would be left to Su Zetian. Everyone was shocked when they heard Yun Jian's decision. Especially Su Zetian. Normally, a new boss would kick the old boss out of the gang. However, Yun Jian was different. Not only did she not do that, but she also let Su Zetian continue to take over the gang's affairs. In that case, other than Yun Jian, who was now the boss in name, everything else was still the same as before. At this moment, the group of higher-ups instantly calmed down, and none of them made a fuss. After all, it was the best of both worlds. All of them wanted their gang to leave Longmen City, but they did not want Su Zetian to leave the gang. Logically speaking, a new boss would not keep the old boss, but Yun Jian was the complete opposite. Chapter 327. Happy working with you. Su Zetian shook his hand. It was only then that he put his hand down. Handing Dragon Head Gang over to Yun Jian was something he had never thought of. Since he had handed the gang over to Yun Jian, he had considered everything. Similarly, Su Zetian naturally wouldn't regret it. After Yun Jian took over Dragon Head Gang and renamed it Falcon Hall, she overhauled Falcon Hall. Although Yun Jian had taken over Dragon Head Gang, the original higher-ups of Dragon Head Gang treated her as their boss wholeheartedly because she had kept Su Zetian and allowed him to continue all his previous work. Yun Jian was actually disdainful to take over a mere Dragon Head Gang, which was the current Falcon Hall. However, her family was in Longmen City and so was her mother. It was only a matter of time before she would come into contact with the secret fights of her past life. An additional force meant an additional guarantee for her mother, brothers, and mother in Longmen City. Yun Jian had made the mistake of her past life once. She would not allow others to take advantage of her weakness again. A few days later, it was the tea party where all the gangs in the country gathered. Yun Jian was free these days. She used the free time to train Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Xiaofeng's accuracy in throwing chopsticks had improved tremendously as well. After all, Zhang Xiaofeng was Yun Jian's first disciple. She would feel bad if she did not train him harder. On the weekend, Yun Jian purposely asked Zhang Xiaofeng out early in the morning. Yun Jian woke up at 4 in the morning. The sky was still dark and the surroundings were pitch black. Before Yun Jian stepped out of the house, she was stopped by Yun Yi, who had returned home this week. Xiao Jian. Yun Yi was wearing a casual white t-shirt. He was dressed casually and only had a pair of loose pants on his lower body. Brother, why are you up so early today? Yun Jian squatted down and tied her shoelaces before standing up. Xiao Jian, are you going to train? Yun Yi had already put on his white sports shoes. He asked Yun Jian and strode towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded and said, "Yes, brother." She had never intended to hide the fact that she was exercising from Yun Yi. Qin Yiru already knew that she had joined the special forces, and so did her brother, Yun Yi. Xiao Jian, I know you've joined the special forces and there are plenty of ways to train your skills. I know I'm not as good as you, but I don't want to stand behind you for everything in the future. I want you to know that I've got your back. So, Xiao Jian, I want to train with you guys in the future, is that okay? Yun Yi blurted out. Every time something happened, it was his younger sister who stood up for him. Yun Yi was a man and he wanted to be strong too. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She knew that her brother was asking her to train him. She was already worried about her brother and mother, Qin Yiru, when she was not around in the future. If Yun-yi wanted to be strong, she was naturally willing to agree. Of course. Yun-jian's lips curled up into a smile. Since they were going to train, she would make her brother a powerhouse. She could prevent him from becoming a powerful killing machine, but at least dealing with third-rate assassins was her minimum requirement for her brother and Zhang Xiaofeng. Chapter 328. The result of Yun-yi joining as Yun-jian's training partner was to practice throwing chopsticks with Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun-jian after their morning run. Zhang Xiaofeng had been practicing throwing chopsticks for quite some time now. Even if he were to place an empty beer bottle tens of meters away, he would still be able to throw it accurately. Master's brother. You're practicing with me under Master. According to the rule of first come, first served, you have to call me senior brother. Zhang Xiaofeng was bubbly as he went up to Yun-yi and teased gleefully. Yun-yi knew that Zhang Xiaofeng was joking with him, but he only smiled and continued to practice throwing chopsticks. The task of throwing chopsticks sounded simple, but if the empty beer bottle was placed dozens of meters away, it would be difficult to throw the chopsticks again. Come here. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun-yi were teasing each other, Yun-jian waved a hand to signal Zhang Xiaofeng to come to her. Master, what are you doing? Zhang Xiaofeng asked, but he still ran over obediently. With a smile, Yun-jian watched as Zhang Xiaofeng came to her and said, "Give me your hand." Zhang Xiaofeng had no idea what was going on. He scratched his head and extended his hand in confusion, mumbling, "Master, what are you doing?" Before Zhang Xiaofeng could finish his question, Yun-jian suddenly grabbed Zhang Xiaofeng's elbow and pulled Zhang Xiaofeng over to poke at his hard bones. "It hurts, master." Zhang Xiaofeng shrieked in pain. In an instant he was drenched in sweat. "Xiao Jian, what are you doing?" Seeing that Yun-jian was pinching Zhang Xiaofeng's hard bones like she was dealing with a bad guy, Yun-yi dropped her chopsticks and ran over. Yun-jian had already let go of Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Xiaofeng was as limp as a puddle of mud, almost falling over. "Get up. You're not dead yet." Yun-jian patted Zhang Xiaofeng, who was sprawled on the floor like he was about to die. Zhang Xiaofeng moved the hard bones on his wrist and ankle that were pinched by Yun-jian out of the blue and almost suffocated him from the pain. "Why doesn't it hurt anymore?" Zhang Xiaofeng swung his hand and stomped his foot, exclaiming in surprise. It was as if the pain that he was drenched in sweat just now was an illusion. "Do you want to do it again?" Yun-jian asked with a smirk. No. Zhang Xiaofeng shouted in English due to his nervousness. Zhang Xiaofeng then swung his arm and looked at Yun-jian curiously, asking, "Master, what were you doing just now?" Yun-yi was equally curious as she looked at her younger sister with a puzzled expression. "Your bones are hard now, but they won't become soft in a short period of time, so I was just stretching your flexibility. You can learn to do it yourself in the future," Yun-jian explained. She paused for a moment before continuing, "Flexibility is very important. If you don't have flexibility, then your training methods will be no different from ordinary people." Once Zhang Xiaofeng heard that it was a new technique that he had not learned in a long time other than the practice of throwing chopsticks, he was pumped and went to Yun-jian, asking, Master, teach me." By the time Yun-jian taught Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun-yi, it was almost 6 or 7 o'clock. Zhang Xiaofeng had something to do in the morning, so he waved goodbye to Yun-jian. Before leaving, he invited Yun-jian, Master, my father's company will hold a fancy party in a few days. You must come then. Cindy will definitely be there too. I'll let you know then." Zhang Xiaofeng said, waving his hand and running away. With a smile, Yun-jian acquiesced to it. Yun-yi was sweating profusely after Yun-jian's training. His white t-shirt was soaked in sweat, and his short hair was also hazy with sweat. Chapter 329. It had been some time since the New Year's Day performance ended, which meant that winter break was not far away. At the same time, the final exams before winter break were coming. There were about 3 weeks to the final exams. Yun-jian woke up early this morning. As usual, she went for a morning run with Zhang Xiaofeng and her newly joined brother, Yun-yi, before heading to Dragon Head Gang, which was now Falcon Hall's headquarters. The fact that the original Dragon Head Gang had changed its name to Falcon Hall had caused a commotion in Longmen City. The reason for the commotion was that the original Dragon Head Gang, which was now Falcon Hall, had changed hands. Su Zetian was no longer the mafia boss. It was said that the position of Longmen City's mafia boss was replaced by a woman named Slaying Luo. This woman named Slaying Luo was, without a doubt, Yun Jian. Yun Jian was the one who came up with the moniker. Yun Jian did not plan to replace Longmen City's mafia boss with her real name, and she was too lazy to think of a new name. Slaying God was her code name when she was the king of secret agents, so it was inappropriate to use it again. Slashing God was her code name as a special forces soldier, so it was inappropriate for it to appear again. Hence, Yun Jian adopted the Slaying character from her past life's codename, Slaying God, and formed a new codename with Luo Gong. Slaying Luo. Hence, the most popular rumor in the underworld was that a woman named Slaying Luo had replaced Longmen City's mafia boss. It was also said that this woman named Slaying Luo had killed her way into Dragon Head Gang's inner circle, but she did not cripple the gang's original boss, Su Zetian, but let him continue to take over his original job. There were people who commented on Falcon Hall's new boss. This woman must be out of her mind. Of course, there were many rumors, but no one had the ability to obtain accurate information. Hence, everything became hearsay. Now, Yun Jian was carrying a shoulder bag as she walked toward Falcon Hall's headquarters. There was a small shop near Falcon Hall's headquarters. Yun Jian went in to buy a pack of bubble gum and blew a few bubbles as she leisurely made her way to Falcon Hall's headquarters. When the two men guarding the door saw Yun Jian, they couldn't help but shout happily, "Boss!" Everyone in Falcon Hall had heard about what happened to Yun Jian. However, no one would not recognize Yun Jian as their boss. The news had spread in the gang that their new boss was the director of New Cruise. She spent less than half a year to bring New Cruise to where it was today. It was obvious that her strength was not to be underestimated. Yes. Yun Jian also nodded at the two guards. Then, she stepped through the main entrance of the building and walked inside. After a while, Yun Jian came out again. But this time, Yun Jian didn't come out alone. There were two people beside her. At first glance, the person on the left was Qin Yu while the one on the right was Su Zetian. Yes, Yun Jian was carrying a shoulder bag. She was planning to go to the National Underground Mafia's tea party. She only planned to bring two people, Su Zetian and Qin Yu. In the beginning, the higher-ups objected to the arrangement. After all, Yun Jian was the boss of Longmen City's underworld. Now that she was going to attend the tea party of the National Underground Mafia, it was only natural that she brought sufficient manpower. In spite of it, other than Su Zetian and Qin Yu, Yun Jian did not plan to bring anyone else. Chapter 330. Country Z's National Mafia Tea Party was held in F City of G Province, far away from Longmen City and even J Province. The mafia that organized the tea party was G Province's provincial mafia, the Green Tiger Mafia. The Green Tiger Gang had been established a long time ago. It was said that the gang had already gained a foothold in the area during the Qing dynasty. Even after the war ended, the Green Tiger Gang was still the boss of the entire G Province. The Green Tiger Mafia had tens of thousands of members scattered across various cities in G Province. Their influence and status were incomparable to the original Dragon Head Mafia. In spite of it, the Green Tiger Mafia and Falcon Hall did not have any conflict of interest because the Green Tiger Mafia was in G Province while Falcon Hall was in J Province's Longmen City. Moreover, the two mafia groups were not in the same field at the moment. One was the provincial boss while Falcon Hall was at most the biggest mafia group in Longmen City. With Falcon Hall's current status, they did not have much influence even in J Province. Now, Yun Jian was driving her beloved car, the LaFerrari sports car, to F City of G Province. The back of the sports car could seat people as well, so it was not a problem for Su Zetian and Qin Yu to sit inside. She chose to drive her beloved car, the LaFerrari, to F City of G Province to attend the tea party because despite its exquisite appearance, it was actually modified by Yun Jian. She had already modified the sports car and installed all kinds of bulletproof devices inside. In other words, even if an accident were to happen, it would be useless even if someone were to shoot at her with a pistol or a sniper rifle from behind. Ji province was far away. Even when Yunjian raced and maintained a speed of more than 200 kilometers per hour on the distant highway, it still took her 6 hours to reach her destination. Ji province's security was not as good as Zhe province's, hence the mafia's development was much more advanced than Zhe province's. Yunjian drove into F city of Ji province quickly and was now driving to the tea party's destination. F city of Ji province, the location of the mafia tea party. There were many cars coming and going, but most of them were escorted by other cars. Those who alighted from the cars, who were the mafia bosses, entered the venue one after another. Compared to the other mafia bosses' grand entrance, or the mafia bosses who were escorted by dozens of black-clad bodyguards, a red super limited edition Ferrari sports car was particularly eye-catching. Once the red super limited edition Ferrari drove into the venue, it attracted a lot of attention. Everyone's gaze was on the car that entered alone without any escort. As the Ferrari drove into the garage slowly, a pair of flat-bottomed white sneakers were the first to be seen in the car. Then, a young girl in her 16 years old, with a very delicate appearance and a shoulder bag on her shoulder, jumped out of the driver's seat. A young girl? Everyone's attention was taken aback. On this kind of day where the leaders of the underworld gathered, there was actually a 16-year-old little kid running here? Io, Sister Jian, I've been sitting in the back seat for 6 whole hours. My waist is sore. Following that, everyone heard another young girl's grumbling voice. Following that, the girl appeared from the place where the outstanding young girl with a shoulder bag on her shoulder had come out from. Another girl of about 15 or 16 years of age. If they did not know that this was a mafia gathering place where all the mafia bosses gathered, they would have thought that this was an amusement park. Or was one of the mafia bosses really one of the 2 girls in front of them? That was impossible, was it? It's here. The door to the front passenger seat of the Ferrari opened and a middle-aged man alighted. When they saw the middle-aged man, the expressions of the people around him relaxed slightly. Chapter 331. After all, how could a young girl be the boss of a mafia? Letting an underage girl manage an entire mafia? This was not a game. Therefore, everyone's thoughts were the same. In spite of it, everyone took a second look at Yunjian and the other 2 girls. Everyone assumed that Su Zetian was the boss of this mafia and that Yunjian and Qing Yu were his fighters. But even so, it was enough to surprise people. As a mafia boss, were you planning to embarrass yourself by bringing 2 young girls to this national mafia tea party? Everyone knew that the purpose of this tea party was to have a friendly competition between all the experts of the gangs. To put it bluntly, it was a competition to see whose mafia members were more powerful. The fighters brought by the mafia were all brawny and strong men. Look at Yunjian and the other 2 girls. Su Zetian, who was assumed to be the mafia boss, stood in front while Yunjian and Qing Yu stood beside him. Outsiders would think that Yunjian and Qing Yu were incompetent girls just by looking at them. Were they here for a competition? Were they sure they were not here to travel with their children? The outsiders watched as Yunjian led Su Zetian and Qing Yu into the tea party. When they reached the entrance, there was a person doing a special registration. Which district and which gang? The person doing the registration at the door didn't even raise his head as he asked. Zhe province's Longmen City, Falcon Hall. Yunjian's sweet, girlish voice made the person look up. After he was done, he told Yunjian and the other 2 girls, "You may go in." As he spoke, the person watched Yunjian and the other 2 girls enter the venue. He rubbed his nose and could not help sighing deeply. Do kids nowadays attend places like this? Sigh, kids these days mature early indeed. Yunjian and the other 2 girls had already entered the venue of the mafia tea party. The scale of this national mafia tea party was extraordinarily large. Naturally, it had an aura. The Green Tiger Gang was the host of the tea party and the number 1 gang in Ji province. Naturally, they had to put on a strong front. Among the gangs, the original Dragon Head Gang, which was now known as Falcon Hall, really wasn't outstanding. Other than Yunjian and Qing Yu, who attracted a lot of attention, even Su Zetian, who was with them, received a lot of attention. Sister Jian, it's my first time attending a national mafia gathering like this, Qing Yu said lazily as she picked a snack from the dishes on the table and munched on it. When Qing Yu followed Yun Jian in her past life, the banquets she attended were no smaller than this tea party. Therefore, in the face of a tea party of this scale, he was naturally at ease. Yun Jian hummed in reply, crossing her arms and standing where she was nonchalantly. She wore a close-fitting thermal bra and a down jacket today. If one only looked at Yun Jian's current appearance and her slender figure that was wrapped in the down jacket, she was very attention-grabbing. Qing Yu's baby face attracted a lot of attention as well. Now that she was munching on a grape, she commented cheerfully, "This tea party can't be compared to the banquets in the past, but the snacks taste pretty good." As she spoke, Qing Yu picked up a grape and passed it to Yun Jian. "Here, Sister Jian, try it. It's delicious." Yun Jian was not haughty. She took the grape and peeled off the skin when it entered her mouth before swallowing it. After a moment, Yun Jian replied, "It's not bad." Just as the three of them were standing there for a long time, with no one paying any attention to them, a voice suddenly sounded in front of them. It was not directed at Yun Jian and Qing Yu, but it was directed at Su Zetian. Instead, he openly mocked Su Zetian. Look, isn't this the former boss of Dragon Head Gang? The former boss of Falcon Hall? How are you able to show up here?" Chapter 332. The bald man in his 30s stared at Yun Jian and Qing Yu, who were not too far away from Su Zetian, and guffawed as if he had suddenly caught something hilarious. After a pause, the bald man spoke to Su Zetian arrogantly, It's only been a few days and you've brought 2 little girls to this tea party. Su Zetian, are you kidding me?" As he spoke, the bald man's expression turned arrogant. "Right? Where's the legendary new boss of Falcon Hall, Slaying Luo? TSK, I heard she's a woman too." It was a blatant provocation. One had to admit that the bald man was here to pick a fight. "Su Linbo, are you done?" Su Zetian could not hold it in anymore. He finally lost it when Yun Jian did not say anything and roared back at the bald man. The bald man called Su Linbo picked his nose. He picked out a pile of booger from his nostrils and played with it twice between his fingers before flicking it off. He then pointed his nose at Su Zetian and said in an imposing manner, "What? I know. Su Zetian, you're not the boss now. Could it be that Falcon Hall's new boss, Slaying Luo, doesn't dare to show up?" But that's true. I heard Slaying Luo is a woman. How would a woman dare to come to the territory where we men gather?" Su Linbo looked smug. Su Linbo was obviously acquainted with Su Zetian. Reality also proved that Su Linbo and Su Zetian had a deep connection. Su Zetian used to be the boss of Jia Province's Longmen City, but Jia Province had more than one city. There was a city near Longmen City called Yuzhou City, and Su Linbo was the boss of Yuzhou City. The 2 big bosses in the neighboring districts also had a great relationship with each other. Moreover, Su Linbo and Su Zetian had a huge conflict because of some things back then. Today was another national tea party. When Su Linbo saw Su Zetian, he naturally knew that he was no longer the boss of Falcon Hall. Enemies were usually enraged when they met, so Su Linbo had to come over and taunt him before he would let it go. After all, they were not on good terms back then. How bad was it? The 2 gangs were almost about to have a cross-city fight. But in the end, they didn't fight it out. Just as Su Linbo was feeling smug and completely ignored Yun Jian and Qing Yu, a voice suddenly rang out. The young lady's clear and refined voice was even more eye-catching in this noisy tea party. "Who said I didn't dare to come? Am I not here now?" Yun Jian suddenly interrupted, but her sudden admission caught Su Linbo, who had been complacent and even a little smug, off guard. Since Yun Jian had answered Su Linbo's question, did it mean that she was the current boss of Falcon Hall, the woman named Slaying Luo? No matter how bad Falcon Hall was, it was still the top mafia group in Longmen City, a legitimate mafia group with thousands of members. Su Linbo and the others were already surprised when they heard that the original Dragon Head Gang had been taken over by a young woman named Luo Sha. After all, how could a gang be taken over by a woman? Many people would think that a woman would take over a gang and become the boss. A gang boss was a position that belonged to men. The fact that Falcon Hall was taken over by a woman was already shocking enough. More importantly, this woman named Rakshasa was actually this young girl who didn't even look 18 years old. What a joke! Was there a mistake? In fact, Su Linhua had not even looked at Yunjian and Qingyu in the eye since the beginning. No matter how he looked at them, Yunjian and Qingyu, one of them was delicate and pretty while the other had a baby face that was purely childish. They looked like two skinny and weak girls no matter how he looked at them. In order to become the boss of a gang, the most important thing was to have strength. With strength, the brothers in the gang would listen to your orders and follow you wholeheartedly. Yun Jian and Qingyu, on the other hand, were hardly convincing. What? You're saying that you're the new boss of Falcon Hall, the woman named Slaying Luo? Su Linhua cried out in shock. His shout immediately attracted the attention of the people in the surrounding circle. In fact, it was not that there were no female bosses in modern society, but they were few and far between. In spite of this, it was unheard of for an underage girl to be the boss. It had never happened since ancient times. Therefore, the crowd who had been paying attention to the situation when Yunjian and Qingyu entered looked over when they heard Su Linhua's exclamation. Chapter 333. Everyone's gaze was trained on Yunjian, waiting for her answer. Falcon Hall's boss was a woman? The news was too shocking. Yunjian, however, smirked and replied to Su Linhua's question, "Why? Don't I look like one?" Once the group heard Yunjian's reply, they could not help grumbling inwardly, "Not only do you not look like one, you don't look alike at all, okay?" Su Linhua gulped and stared at Yunjian for another 2 seconds before he snapped out of it. Humph. Since he had said confidently that Yunjian, Falcon Hall's boss, was not present, Su Linhua's mood was more or less affected as he scoffed. Although Yunjian had no grudge against him, Su Linhua and Su Zetian had a deep grudge. Now that Yunjian had taken over Falcon Hall, Su Linhua hated Yunjian as well. Hence, Su Linhua continued quickly, casting a sidelong glance at Yunjian as he spoke. Humph, ignorant brat. As he spoke, Su Linhua's gaze turned to Su Zetian again, his words laced with indescribable malice. Huh, Su Zetian, oh Su Zetian, you're amazing too. Aren't you arrogant? Now, you've handed your gang to an underage brat. Humph, I, Su Linhua, shall open my eyes wide and see how long Falcon Hall can last. He was mocking Yunjian in disguise, hinting that Falcon Hall would fall one day after Yunjian took over. Su Zetian was not a person who would rage at the slightest provocation, but anyone who heard it would not be able to tolerate it. Just as he was about to retort, however, Yunjian tugged at the corner of his shirt. Sister Jian, what are you doing? Su Zetian's gaze was locked as he asked in bewilderment at Yunjian's action. Yunjian did not look at Su Zetian, nor did she answer him. Her gaze was trained on Su Linhua, the murderous intent in her eyes blatant. Open your dog eyes and see how much stronger the gang I lead will be compared to a villain like you who speaks behind others' backs. She could crush a despicable person like Su Linhua with one hand. She was the king of secret agents who had made it to where she was now by stepping on the corpses of people who were known as powerhouses. Yunjian did not think much of Su Linhua even if he was a European arms tycoon, let alone a city-level boss in Jia province. The girl's domineering words echoed throughout the place. For a time, countless famous people were stunned on the spot. Whether Yunjian was capable or not, she was at least holding the fort now. Su Linhua felt a little guilty from Yunjian's words, especially when he met Yunjian's gaze. The murderous intent in Yunjian's eyes made him shudder. In spite of it, Su Linhua was forced to retort Yunjian due to his pride. Humph, I'll be waiting. As he spoke, Su Linhua walked away disgruntledly since he could not win back his pride. As a result, the uproar that was caused just now was instantly dispelled. Who's that? So annoying. Qingyu leaned against a long table next to Yunjian and spoke cheerfully, peeling another grape and chewing it before swallowing it. He's Su Linhua, the boss of the so-called world's best gang in the neighboring city of Longmen City, Su Zetian explained from the side. World's best gang? I think he's more like the last gang. How dare he challenge Sister Jian? He'll be in for it later. Qin Yu patted the sticky grape juice off her hands and went straight to Yun Jian. Huh? Su Zetian did not understand and asked Qin Yu in confusion. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Others might not understand Qin Yu's words, but she did. After a while, a low male voice suddenly screamed from the crowd, "Hey, hey! What's going on? It's so itchy. So itchy. Why is my body so itchy all of a sudden? What's going on? It's so itchy. So itchy." Chapter 334. Perhaps no one else saw what happened just now. Yun Jian, on the other hand, saw everything clearly and understood what happened over there. Qin Yu's poisoning was done stealthily, so Yun Jian was not surprised. When Su Linbo was near them, Qin Yu had poisoned him without a sound. It was a poison that made a person itch so much that they wanted to scratch themselves all over. If there was no antidote, they might even peel off a layer of their skin. Other than Yun Jian, the others did not see what happened just now because Qin Yu's poisoning speed was too fast for the naked eye to see. How could Qin Yu, nicknamed Lady Poison, be a weakling? Of course, Yun Jian could see that Qin Yu had poisoned her. Humph, who asked him to be so smug just now? How dare he slander my sister Jian? He should have a taste of his own medicine. Qin Yu looked at where Su Linbo was acting up and pouted before grabbing a small tomato from the long table to stuff it into her mouth and chew. Su Zetian heard Qin Yu's grumbling as well and could not help turning to look at Qin Yu from the corner of Yun Jian's head. He had witnessed Yun Jian's skills before. Yun Jian was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Not long after, Su Linbo began to scratch his body. Then, Su Linbo's reaction became more and more intense. In the end, he actually fell to the ground and started rolling. Combined with Qin Yu's grumbling, Su Zetian could not help but be surprised. Could Su Linbo's reaction be Qin Yu's doing? Su Zetian had thought that Qin Yu was just a young girl who followed Yun Jian around and did not even consider her capabilities. Now, Su Zetian was even more surprised. It turned out that not only was Yun Jian skilled, the girl she brought along was extraordinarily skilled as well. Su Zetian had been staring at Su Linbo without blinking earlier. He had watched Su Linbo walk away and did not even see Qin Yu make a move all this while. Yet, the poison had already reached Su Linbo? What level was this? Let's go check it out over there. Yun Jian's gaze was nonchalant. She exuded a nonchalant aura, but her clear eyes and delicate features exuded an exquisite and unparalleled beauty. She was looking in a direction and urged Su Zetian and Qin Yu to go with her. Su Zetian grew solemn when he heard that Yun Jian wanted to go over there. From what he could tell, there must be a reason behind Yun Jian's words. "Heh, Sister Jian, you found this." Qin Yu's voice came again. What did she find? Su Zetian followed Yun Jian went over solemnly, thinking that Yun Jian must have discovered something important. It was because she gave off the impression that she was a person who was calm and collected even in the face of major events. When he followed Yun Jian to a long dining table with a variety of delicacies, however, he saw Yun Jian reaching out to take a huge crab from the table. She then peeled the crab and dipped it in the soy sauce on the table before eating it bite by bite. Su Zetian, who thought that Yun Jian had found something important, was dumbfounded. It turned out that Yun Jian had brought them here just to eat this huge crab. Qin Yu's cheeky face could not help breaking into a smile. She leaned on the table and turned to ask Yun Jian, "Sister Jian, this tea party doesn't look like much, but the food is pretty good." Yun Jian nodded and swallowed the last mouthful of fatty crab meat before commenting, "This crab is delicious." Yun Jian loved crabs. She loved all kinds of seafood. Qin Yu was aware of this, which was why she said what she said just now. Su Zetian, who was standing to the side, gulped. He was suddenly speechless. Chapter 335. As for Su Linbo, he had been rolling around on the ground for quite a while after Yun Jian had finished eating an entire crab. Due to Su Linbo's ruckus, some of the people who were in charge of maintaining order at the tea party stepped in and carried Su Linbo to the hospital. On Su Linbo's exposed skin, There were many dense red pustules growing out of it. He's allergic, isn't he? What bad luck. Someone could not help shouting. Su Linhua's reaction did seem like an allergic reaction, so everyone assumed that it was just an allergic reaction. However, Su Linhua's reaction was quite frightening, so they had no choice but to carry him to the hospital. After that, the tea party officially began. Su Linhua's abnormal reaction did not attract much attention. Instead, outside the tea party venue, a man in his 30s with thick brows and a rather handsome appearance was escorted in by a group of more than 10 bodyguards, attracting the attention of the crowd. This rather good-looking man was the organizer of the tea party for all the gangs in the country, the boss of Ji Province's famous Green Tiger Gang, Long Yuqing. Currently, Long Yuqing was being escorted into the venue by a group of bodyguards. At that time, a large group of gang leaders from all over the country rushed forward and took the opportunity to curry favor with them. Green Tiger Gang was not only the top gang in Ji Province, but it was also the leading gang in the northern region of the country. In other words, the boss of the northern region of the country was Green Tiger Gang. Therefore, Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing, attracted everyone's attention as soon as he appeared. In addition, Long Yuqing was not only the boss of Green Tiger Gang in everyone's eyes, but he was also young and promising. He was only 31 years old this year and was quite good-looking. He could be considered handsome. Many of the gang bosses had the intention of using their daughters to get close to Long Yuqing. If he could climb into Long Yuqing's bed, that would be the best. But if he couldn't, it would be good even if it was a stroke of good fortune. For a moment, there was no one else other than Yun Jian, Qing Yu, and Su Zetian who remained where they were. Long Yuqing glanced around and was stunned when his gaze landed on Yun Jian and the rest. There was actually such an exquisite beauty in this world. Moreover, all the people present at the tea party were either the leaders of the various major gangs or the fighters of the gang leaders. They were all high-ranking members of the gangs. Yun Jian and Qing Yu's presence was rather conspicuous. When Long Yuqing saw that Yun Jian was standing in the same spot and did not come forward to flatter him, his curiosity was piqued. Curiosity killed the cat. At this time, Long Yuqing pushed through the crowd and walked towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian was standing in the same spot. Her eyes were calm, but she could feel Long Yuqing walking towards her. "This beautiful lady, how should I address you?" Long Yuqing asked as he stood in front of Yun Jian, sizing her up with interest amidst the crowd's support and envy. Yun Jian only raised her head to glance at Long Yuqing before withdrawing her gaze. She faintly spat out 2 words, "Rakshasa." Long Yuqing was even more surprised when he saw Yun Jian looking down and ignoring him after a glance. Of all the people who came here, which one of them wasn't anxious to curry favor with him? She was really special. "May I know which gang you're from then?" Long Yuqing's voice sounded as loud as he could to make the women present scream. However, Yun Jian did not feel anything. She did not even bother to reply to Long Yuqing. "We're from Ji Province's Falcon Hall." Su Zetian, on the other hand, was a little scared when Yun Jian did not reply to Long Yuqing, so he replied on her behalf. "Ha, interesting." Long Yuqing narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Jian with interest. His eyes were gleaming, but he turned to leave when Yun Jian ignored him again. Chapter 336. Long Yuqing's appearance did not fluster Yun Jian at all. It was Su Zetian who panicked as he stood beside Yun Jian and looked at her worriedly. "Sister Jian, that's Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing. He's young but he's the boss of the biggest gang in the north. Rumor has it that he's ruthless. Nothing he sets his sights on has ever escaped. He probably had his eyes on you just now. Sister Jian, why don't we leave earlier?" The reason why the other gangs were so afraid of the Green Tiger Gang and wanted to get close to it was because it was a gang with absolute capability. In the early years, when numerous gangs of various sizes were fighting for supremacy in the north, the Green Tiger Gang had already stood out. It had hundreds of years of history and a strong foundation. It was rumored that its wealth could rival a country's. Of course, it was just a metaphor. It did not mean that the Green Tiger Gang was really that powerful. However, Su Zetian had heard that Long Yuqing was young, only 31 years old, but he was extremely ruthless in his methods. There was another rumor about Long Yuqing. It was said that no one he set his sights on, be it a woman or a man, could escape from his clutches. Su Zetian was at most the boss of a small Longmen city back then. He had never thought of going up against the most powerful gang in the north, Green Tiger Gang. This was something that was completely impossible to win. What Long Yuqing said just now meant that he had his eyes on Yunjian. Therefore, the only way Su Zetian could think of was to run. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would run away from a battle? Yunjian chuckled at Su Zetian's words and tucked a handful of hair behind her ear as she said with pursed lips. Qin Yu, who was standing aside, chuckled. In contrast to Su Zetian's worries, Qin Yu was unfazed. In spite of it, there was a reason for her to run. If Yunjian was really that capable, if she was only the boss of a mere Falcon Hall and caught the attention of Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing, the biggest gang in the north, it was possible for her to run away immediately. It was a pity that Yunjian was not like that. The word escape had never appeared in her dictionary. The tea party lasted for a while. During this time, all the bosses present, as well as the higher-ups who came to participate in the tea party, only drank tea, tasted the food, and tasted the desserts. It wasn't until one of the hosts from the Green Tiger Gang stepped forward to host the event that the peaceful atmosphere was broken. Everyone, please be quiet. Everyone here is a gang leader from all over the country, as well as the higher-ups of the various gangs. First of all, I would like to welcome you. Secondly, according to tradition, every year during the tea party in the underworld, there will be a ranking of the strength of all the major sections. Therefore, I would like to ask all the experts of the sects to make preparations. In a while, the friendly competition between the sects will begin. Everyone, please have the elites from your sects come to the arena. The Green Tiger Gang basically invited all the gangs in the country to a tea party every year. At the same time, they would also hold a ranking of the gang's strength. In other words, the leaders of the various gangs would bring the strongest person in their gang to participate in this tea party. Furthermore, during the competition, the strongest person among them would participate in the competition. Of course, at this time, the strongest person in the gang would represent their own gang. The first round of the competition will be a competition of marksmanship. Everyone, please gather in the backyard of the tea party. After the host finished speaking, he led the crowd to the backyard of the tea house. Let's go too, Yunjian turned to say to Su Zetian and Qin Yu. The three of them then followed the crowd to the backyard of the tea house. Chapter 337. Yunjian nodded in agreement. Qin Yu's poison skill was astounding, but her marksmanship was not the best. However, in a gang tea party like this, no matter how bad her marksmanship was, she would still be one of the best among the group. Su Zetian did not say anything. He knew that Yunjian must have her reasons for agreeing. Yunjian and the other two girls were standing in the corner, but they were also the most conspicuous. Long Yuqing's conversation with Yunjian earlier had attracted the attention of many people present. Yunjian and the other two girls were there as well. In addition, they had heard that Yunjian was Falcon Hall's boss, so they were even more curious about who they would send for the competition. Falcon Hall will probably send that middle-aged man who looks more muscular to compete. After all, the two girls don't look convincing at all. Moreover, the first round is a marksmanship competition. They probably haven't even touched a gun before, have they? Some people could not help discussing. I think it'll be that middle-aged man too. Among the trio, there were two girls and Su Zetian was the only one who was older and looked more robust, so everyone thought that he would be the one to represent Falcon Hall in the competition. Beautiful, we meet again as expected. Do you want me to lend you a hand? I'll send a subordinate to you. Long Yuqing, who had left earlier, came to the backyard of the tea house. He looked at Yunjian and asked with a suggestive gaze. Qin Yu, go over. Yunjian ignored Long Yuqing. She did not even look at him as she turned to speak to Qin Yu. Qin Yu turned and walked toward the place where the powerhouses from various gangs were gathered after listening to Yunjian. Qin Yu looked sweet and adorable with a delicate baby face. However, when Qin Yu walked over, someone finally couldn't help but shout, F*C, it can't be. This is really sending little girls to compete in spear skills? Someone immediately replied, hee, I think the boss of Falcon Hall, Slang Luo, knows that there's no one in his gang, so he sent a little girl up. Even if he loses this round, it won't be embarrassing for him in the future. Looks like the boss of Falcon Hall isn't that great after all. How boring. Some of the people who were watching the show had already started chatting with relish. The highlight of the annual tea party was the time when the various sects would compete against each other to rank their strength. It was also the time when people were most excited about it. Tiske Beauty, you heard it yourself, right? Wasn't it nonsense to send a little girl to shoot a gun? I said that I would send a subordinate to help you out of the goodness of my heart. Why don't you appreciate it? Long Yuqing stood not far from Yunjian and couldn't help but whisper. All in all, his words were filled with doubts about the azure glaze spear technique. However, before Long Yuqing could finish his sentence, a series of gunshots rang out from the arena. Bang bang bang. 10 consecutive gunshots rang out as Qing Yu raised her gun and aimed at the target before she started firing. 10 shots, each one in the ring, hitting the target 10 times. Long Yuqing shut his mouth at once. Those who were gossiping about Yun Jian and her companions just now kept their mouths shut as well. On the other side, Qing Yu ran back after firing her 10 shots. When she came to Yun Jian, she said joyfully, Sister Jian, I'm done, but the target is so close. It's really easy. Yun Jian nodded faintly without much reaction. She looked as if everything was within her expectations. After that, each gang's experts fired their 10 shots and the person in charge of registration was done as well. At this time, the host stood on the competition stage again and used his not-so-pleasant voice to continue speaking. Cough, cough. Everyone, the experts of the gangs have performed very well. Now, we will immediately begin the second round of the competition. This round will be a competition of martial arts. Taekwondo, Wushu, Sanda, whatever martial arts you can use them all. Chapter 338. Qing Yu waved her hand when she heard that this round was a martial arts competition. She turned to Yun Jian and said with a press of dry lips, Sister Jian, I can't compete in martial arts. Qing Yu was a poison expert and her marksmanship was decent as well, but she could only fend off attacks from high-level secret agents or assassins when it came to martial arts. Of course, she could only fend off attacks from the side. Qing Yu had never been good at martial arts competitions where one's fist was harder. A lot of people were listening intently to Yun Jian and her companions' movements. Yun Jian and her companions were too eye-catching. Moreover, even Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing, seemed to be interested in Yun Jian. In addition, Qing Yu's marksmanship that was looked down upon by a bunch of people just now was astounding. Qing Yu was not the only one who had hit the bullseye just now. Those who represented their gangs in the competition were all formidable characters. None of them were weak. Compared to them, however, Qing Yu stood out because of her age. For a young girl who was only in her teens to have such powerful spear skills, it was really amazing. In spite of it, everyone could not help gasping when they heard Qing Yu say that she was not good at martial arts. God was fair. Qing Yu's marksmanship was good, but her ability was lacking. What these people did not know was that even if Qing Yu's ability was lacking, she had 1,000 ways to poison anyone present to death unknowingly. Yun Jian nodded faintly. The crowd started guessing again who Falcon Hall's woman, Slang Luo, would send to compete this time. It should be that middle-aged man this time. I don't think it's anyone else other than him. There's only 3 of them here. She can't possibly be the one to show up. Someone said, looking at Yun Jian. Beauty, do you dare to make a bet with me? Long Yuqing could not help asking as he looked at Yun Jian. What's the bet? Yun Jian grinned and replied to Long Yuqing. If Falcon Hall ranks within the top 10 of all the sects in this martial arts competition, then I'll agree to any of your conditions. But if you can't get into the top 10, you can be my girlfriend. What do you think? Long Yuqing's words were very unreasonable. Not to mention that Long Yuqing was already 31 years old, which was a full generation older than Yun Jian. However, Long Yuqing felt that the first time he saw Yun Jian, He felt that she was very attractive and special. That was why his interest was piqued and he made such a suggestion. In Long Youqing's mind, there were only 3 of them, including Yunjian. Now that Qin Yu was not participating in the competition, and Su Zetian did not look particularly strong either, his request was for Falcon Hall to be ranked within the top 10 among all the sects present in the martial arts competition. It was not an easy task. There might be an exception in the shooting competition just now, but it was not so easy to win in a martial arts competition. Moreover, there were more than 100 people from all the sects present. It was not easy to get into the top 10 among all the sects present. In the past, the first place always belonged to Green Tiger Gang. As for the other sects, they were not weak either. Falcon Hall's predecessor was Dragon Head Gang. Long Youqing had some impression of Dragon Head Gang. He vaguely remembered that Dragon Head Gang had always ranked below the top 100 in the past years. That was why Long Youqing proposed the bet with Yun Jian so boldly. Even if Dragon Head Gang, which was the current Falcon Hall, improved greatly, could they get into the top 10 from the top 100? Under everyone's gaze, Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile as she agreed to Long Youqing's bet. Sure. Sister Jian, you can't do this? Su Zetian called out anxiously from the side. I know what to do, Yun Jian replied and stood up to make her way to the arena. Due to Qin Yu's appearance just now, Yun Jian's appearance was no longer a surprise to the people present. Once they were in the arena, the opponents were decided according to the order of drawing lots. Yun Jian drew a lot and went up to the arena, ready to fight. A bulky man came up from the opposite side of the arena. It was obvious that this person was her opponent. At this time, someone saw the tall and sturdy man and immediately shouted in surprise. Chapter 339. What do you mean it's said? It's true. Teng Shi is the second in command of the Green Tiger Gang. His ability is nothing to scoff at. Did you guys know that? Teng Shi has always represented the Green Tiger Gang and won first place in the past martial arts competitions. Is this for real? Is that good? Do you think he's bluffing? The group of people who were watching the show commented enthusiastically. The friendly competition between the major guilds was, in fact, just sending the strongest person in their own gang to participate. However, the strongest person in the gang represented the entire gang behind him. However, a single powerhouse could be compared to countless higher-ups. Therefore, everyone valued this friendly competition. After all, whichever gang sent this person to win first place would mean that the gang was very powerful. The crowd was enjoying the show while Su Zetian wore a bitter expression on his face. Compared to Su Zetian, Qin Yu was sitting on a bench lazily, munching on the sunflower seeds that she used to entertain the guests. Long Youqing, on the other hand, sat on the highest seat. He narrowed his eyes, certain that Yun Jian would lose. At the same time, Yun Jian, who was thought to lose for sure, stood in the ring. She glanced sideways at her opponent, the burly Teng Shi, who was about 1.93 meters tall. The difference between Teng Shi's height and Yun Jian, who was about 1.6 meters tall, was huge. Under such circumstances, no one thought that Yun Jian could win the competition. That included Su Zetian. Although Yun Jian had defeated Shiniji, who almost made it into the international fighting tournament, Teng Shi was not on the same level as Shiniji back then. Teng Shi was originally a retired Special Forces soldier. When he was a Special Forces soldier, he had even killed a female secret agent from an international underground organization with his bare hands. Therefore, Su Zetian thought that no matter how powerful Yun Jian was, she was only a little girl after all. Could she really defeat Teng Shi, who had killed the female secret agents from the underground organization who killed without batting an eyelid? You want to fight me? Soaring Snake frowned when he saw that his opponent was Yun Jian. It wasn't that Teng Shi looked down on Yun Jian, but as a veteran Special Forces soldier, he felt helpless when he was asked to fight this young girl who was not even an adult yet. Yun Jian looked straight at the Soaring Snake. She was not afraid in the face of danger. When the audience saw this, they all began to cheer. However, they all cheered for Soaring Snake. Soaring Snake. Defeat her and send her home to drink milk. How dare you come here and ask for a beating? I don't hit children. Soaring Snake, on the other hand, stared at Yunjian for 2 seconds. After he finished speaking in front of everyone, he turned around to leave the arena. You're not fighting anymore. It hasn't even started yet. Someone couldn't help but voice out in disappointment. Just as Soaring Snake was about to walk out of the arena, the girl's clear and melodious voice came from behind him. What a pity. I specialize in fighting big friends. She compared him to a big friend? When Soaring Snake heard Yunjian's words, he was stunned. When he turned around, he saw a figure so fast that it was impossible to see with the naked eye rushing towards him. In the next second, the figure kicked Soaring Snake in the abdomen. Soaring Snake could clearly feel himself being kicked a few meters away. His chest was burning as he fell outside the arena. That speed was indescribable with words. In the past, he had killed a female secret agent from an international underground organization. That secret agent's killing method was mysteriously similar to the kick he had received. Chapter 340. Teng Shi lost before the fight even started? The audience below was dumbfounded. However, many of them were Teng Shi's fans. In their eyes, Yunjian's move was a sneak attack. Hence, someone stood up from his seat and shouted at Yunjian, "Little girl, that was a sneak attack. It doesn't count. If Teng Shi was serious, you'd probably be sent home to drink milk." Some people also stood up and spoke up for Teng Shi. They even complained about Yunjian. That's right. You're so young, yet you're using a sneak attack. How shameless. Get lost. Get lost. In an instant, the number of people cursing Yunjian increased greatly. Long Yuqing, who was sitting below, had already sensed that something was wrong when Yunjian made her move. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Yunjian as if he wanted to see through her. Yunjian, who was slandered by the crowd, was unmoved. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Teng Shi, who was lying on the ground. Suddenly, she hooked her pinky and said with a glimmer in her eyes, "If you're not convinced, you can fight me fair and square." Yunjian didn't intend to win with a sneak attack. Reality proved that if she didn't make the first move, with Teng Shi's character, he would probably leave. Teng Shi, who was lying on the ground, looked at Yunjian and stopped looking at her with contempt. Yunjian didn't use too much strength in her kick. Even so, it was enough to hurt Teng Shi, but it didn't hurt his muscles or bones. Teng Shi patted the dust off and stood up from the ground. He frowned and looked at Yunjian for 2 seconds. After a while, his face darkened again. Under everyone's gaze, he said to Yunjian, "I admit defeat." Teng Shi was a smart person. He was able to become the second in command of the Green Tiger Gang and had worked for Long Yuqing for so many years. He definitely had some tricks up his sleeve. Yunjian's kick just now might have looked like a sneak attack to others, but only he knew. Even if Soaring Snake hadn't been ambushed and had fought Yunjian head-on, the result would have been the same. He would have been sent flying with a kick. Teng Shi was the champion of the martial arts competition over the years. It could be said that as long as he admitted defeat, Yunjian would have a 100% chance of winning even if she fought with others later on. After all, Yunjian's kick just now was not for show. No one dared to underestimate Yunjian anymore. They also knew that since Yunjian dared to come on stage, she must have some skills. However, Teng Shi's admission of defeat still shocked everyone. However, compared to Soaring Snake's surrender, Long Yuqing's expression was the ugliest. Long Yuqing was the first to stand up. As the leader of the Green Tiger Gang, he slammed the table and ordered Soaring Snake, "How can a member of the Green Tiger Gang be such a coward?" Long Yuqing was afraid that if Teng Shi admitted defeat, Yunjian might really make it to the top 10. He was still waiting for Yunjian to fulfill her promise after she lost. Teng Shi remained unmoved after hearing Long Yuqing's words. If he could win, why would he admit defeat? However, even though he knew that he couldn't beat his opponent, Teng Shi wasn't so stupid as to rush to his death. "Boss, I'm not a coward. I really can't beat her." That kick just now didn't seem special, but the way she attacked was similar to the female international secret agent I killed years ago. No, it was even better. Back then, when I killed that female international underground agent, I was also covered in wounds and on the verge of death. I almost died. That's why I can't beat her in this round. That's why I admitted defeat. Teng Shi's words pierced everyone's hearts. Such a high evaluation caused huge waves in everyone's hearts. Chapter 341. The female international secret agent that Teng Shi had killed was an elite with decent skills. It was said that she could be ranked in the top 50 of the secret agent ranking. International was a global concept. To be able to be ranked in the top 50 of the assassin or secret agent ranking was already quite powerful. After all, there were many assassins or secret agents in the world. As for the top 10 assassins or secret agents in the international assassin or secret agent ranking, they were simply freaks that crawled out from a pile of dead people. Among the top 20 assassins or secret agents, which one of them was not a big devil with blood on their hands? These 20 people were people that no one present would even think about. After all, these people were at the top of the world, and they did not have the life to meet them. Therefore, Teng Shi, who had killed the female international agent, had won the respect of the strong in everyone's hearts. Today, however, Teng Shi, who claimed to be a powerhouse, was saying that Yun Jian was more skillful than the female agent whom he had barely managed to kill back then. Under such circumstances, who would dare to fight with Yun Jian? However, if the people present knew that Yun Jian was the strongest among the 20 big devils, they would probably be scared witless. As for whether I, Teng Shi, am a coward or not, boss, I'm not a coward. However, I'm not a suicidal person either. Therefore, I admit that I'm not as good as you in this martial arts competition. Teng Shi said this to Long Yuqing, then turned around and left the arena, walking toward the guest seats. Long Yuqing was shocked by Teng Shi's words, but he immediately revealed a trace of viciousness on his face. Ahem, since Teng Shi admitted defeat, then it's Luosha's victory. The host continued to preside over the event. In this martial arts competition, Yun Jian defeated Teng Shi, but she still had to fight with the other masters of the gang. However, because of Teng Shi's precedent, the other people who met Yun Jian all admitted defeat with tears in their eyes. What a joke! How would they dare to fight a woman that even Teng Shi could not defeat? Wouldn't that be courting death? Therefore, Yun Jian did not even need to fight again to secure the first place in the martial arts competition. Winning first place in the martial arts competition also meant that Falcon Hall had surpassed the Green Tiger Gang this year and became the overall champion of this Tea Party competition. First place. Due to Qing Yu's outstanding marksmanship in the first round and Yun Jian's first place in this round, the overall champion was Falcon Hall. The result shocked everyone present, and Long Yuqing's expression darkened further. Long Yuqing had planned for Yun Jian's Falcon Hall never to enter the top 10, that was why he made the bet. But now, her Falcon Hall had actually replaced her Green Tiger Gang and won first place in this Tea Party competition. Yun Jian, who had not even made a move, returned to her seat. She was not in a hurry to sit down but stared at Long Yuqing with her pretty eyes and asked, I wonder if the bet I made with Boss Long earlier still stands? Long Yuqing's expression darkened under everyone's watchful eyes. He had lost face because of a woman. She, on the other hand, was only the boss of a city-level gang. How dare she threaten him again and again? Reality proved that Long Yuqing did not plan to fulfill his promise. Chapter 342. Although Long Yuqing was the boss of the Green Tiger Gang, and he was quite good-looking, at least his facial features could be considered decent. But how many of the gang members who could survive in the black market were honest and upright? It was true that gangsters were loyal, but it did not apply to Long Yuqing. Su Zetian was afraid of Long Yuqing from the start because this was Long Yuqing's territory. More importantly, Long Yuqing did not have a good reputation among the big gangs. Some people said that he changed his attitude faster than flipping a book. Moreover, as mentioned earlier, there was nothing that Long Yuqing could not get if he wanted it. As for Long Yuqing's sudden change in attitude, everyone present could not wait to avoid it. Yun Jian, the person in question, was surrounded by Long Yuqing's gang of close to 100 men. However, she looked normal and did not look surprised at all. Even Long Youqing's sudden change in attitude seemed to be within her expectations. Long Youqing was already on his feet now. He went to Yunjian and looked down at her from above. After 2 seconds of silence, he spoke to Yunjian. Hee, you're a smart person. Since that's the case, I won't beat around the bush with you. I, Long Youqing, have countless women, but I've never met one that I like. Those women only care about my identity and status. But you're different. You're special. So I'm giving you a chance now. I want you to be my woman. Long Youqing's words were said in a firm tone. His words carried the meaning of, I'm flattering you by asking you to be my woman. Yunjian only narrowed her eyes slightly. Her petite body was wrapped in a simple down jacket, but she looked strangely alluring. What if I refuse? Yunjian raised her eyebrows. She did not show any fear, and her words were clear. Then Falcon Hall will disappear from the stage of the black market. Long Youqing's pupils shrunk as he stared at Yunjian's beautiful body. His desire was aroused as he threatened loudly. Yunjian was different from other women. She seemed to have many secrets about her, and her beautiful and alluring body was constantly attracting Long Youqing. Long Youqing desperately wanted to have her for himself. He could not help roaring inwardly that he had to make this woman his prisoner in bed. Are you sure? Yunjian, on the other hand, kept her smile with squinted eyes. There was an unfathomable viciousness on her petite face. Su Zetian and Qing Yu were standing behind Yunjian, surrounded by a group of people. Su Zetian was already sweating profusely. This time, Sister Jian did not bring any of her brothers with her, but something like this happened. He was afraid that Long Youqing would ruin Yunjian, of course. Babe, all of this can be avoided if you're obedient. Long Youqing was back to his usual self as he walked up to Yunjian with a smile and stood in front of her. Her fair and flawless skin was reflected in Long Youqing's eyes as he unconsciously reached out to touch Yunjian's cheek. The gang leaders who dared not make a sound shook their heads inwardly. Yunjian was skilled, but there were only 3 of them. How could she win against Long Youqing? The pretty girl was probably going to be ruined here. Just as Long Youqing reached out to touch Yunjian's cheek with a smile, a bright object flashed before everyone's eyes. Tissus. With a soft sound, a blinding bullet came from afar and sank into Long Youqing's hand that was about to touch Yunjian's skin. Ow! Long Youqing howled as the bullet pierced his palm, his voice echoing through the clouds. Everyone was stunned by this turn of events. At the same time, everyone looked in the direction where the bullet had come from. A man in his 19 years of age was escorted by 2 men in their 20s as they walked over. The man in the middle was the one who had fired the shot. He was currently striding over with his long legs. Chapter 343. The newcomer was Ce. The 2 men standing behind Ce were none other than Adam and Immerse, who were always by his side. The appearance of the 3 men immediately caused a commotion among the crowd. The 3 of them were all top-notch beauties, and their appearances were absolutely stunning. In comparison, Ce's looks were a cut above the other 2 men. The surrounding crowd was dumbfounded by what they saw. Originally, among this group of people, Long Youqing's appearance could be considered to be the most upright and outstanding. However, the appearance of the 3 men, not to mention Ce, who was standing in the middle, the 2 men beside him were far more attractive than Long Youqing. As for Ce, who was standing in the middle, he was so handsome that words could not describe him. At that moment, what frightened the crowd the most was what Ce had said earlier. Kill Long Youqing? Destroy the Green Tiger Gang? The crowd's heart skipped a beat, but they quickly calmed down. Even if Ce had shot Long Youqing's palm the moment he appeared, what kind of status did the Green Tiger Gang have? The Green Tiger Gang was the top gang in the northern region. How could they be destroyed just like that? Yes, young master. Immerse, who was standing on the left, answered. He then took out his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. Who are you? How dare you say that you want to kill me and destroy the Green Tiger Gang? Long Youqing's face was contorted in pain as he pressed his other hand that was shot through with one hand and took 2 steps forward to stand in front of Ce, speaking through the pain. You don't deserve to know our young master's identity. As for your Green Tiger Gang, our Hun organization can't destroy you. Adam could no longer suppress his irritable nature. He jumped out and sneered at Long Yuqing. An Hun organization? An Hun organization? Wasn't an Hun organization the famous assassin organization that had trained countless international bigwigs? One should know that the top secret agent, slaying God, who had shaken the world and made countless businessmen, politicians, and international tycoons tremble in fear, was from an Hun organization. These people were from the Hun organization. Hearing Adam's words, Long Yuqing's face, which was already pale due to his injuries, became as white as a sheet of paper. He was stunned on the spot. The Hun organization, along with the Kosha mercenaries, was known as the #1 assassin organization and the #1 mercenary organization. Someone once said that if you offended anyone from the Hun organization, you wouldn't be far from death. Long Yuqing hadn't expected the people from Hun to show up at his little tea party. The bullet had pierced his palm, but Long Yuqing was enduring the suffocating pain. He knelt down with a thud and crawled towards the. Please let me go, let me go. I don't know how I've angered all of you, but please forgive me. Let me go this time. Long Yuqing's entire body was trembling, and his voice was trembling. Heavens! An Hun organization. He, Long Yuqing, had angered the people from an Hun organization? Not to mention the Green Tiger Gang. Even if all the gangs present were to combine forces, they wouldn't be a match for an Hun organization. This was the difference in ability. I don't know how you've angered our young master. You challenged our young madam in public, and you say you didn't anger our young master? Adam stood in front of Long Yuqing and mercilessly stomped on the back of Long Yuqing's hand as he spoke word by word. Chapter 344. From today onwards, don't let me hear any news about the Green Tiger Gang. Ce turned his body sideways, not even sparing a glance at Long Yuqing, who was kneeling on the ground with Adam stepping on the back of his hand, announcing his end. Young mistress? This woman named Slang Luo was the woman of this man who possessed such a dominating aura? Long Yuqing's eyes lost their color as he stood rooted to the ground. His heart was pounding with regret. Alas, it was too late. He actually wanted to snatch the woman from an Hun group? Now, the 100-year-old Green Tiger Gang that had been passed down by his ancestors would be destroyed because of his mistake. Everyone was stunned as they stared at Ce, who announced the end of the northern region's top gang, Green Tiger Gang, as he walked toward Yunjian. At this moment, everyone's hearts surged with a wild exclamation. Yunjian was actually the woman of an important figure in an Hun group. She actually had connections with people from an Hun organization. Su Zetian was equally stunned. He stared blankly at the man who walked toward Yunjian like a king, exclaiming inwardly. It was no wonder that Yunjian was so confident that she could lead the gang out of Longmen City. Su Zetian was the only one who felt grateful that he had chosen to follow Yunjian back then. Otherwise, he would still be wandering around Longmen City. Yunjian was destined to be extraordinary. Ce was already in front of Yunjian. Looking at the girl's petite face, he had the urge to hide her in his embrace and prevent her from being stolen by anyone. Why are you here? Yunjian blinked. She had wanted to make a move just now, but Ce had made the first move. Moreover, he had told her that he would be leaving for a while. She did not expect him to appear here, so she asked. I'm done here, so I came to look for you. She did not expect to see the scene just now. Ce did not finish his sentence, but his raised brow was enough to show his fury. His tall frame standing in front of Yunjian was strangely compatible with Yunjian. It was just a simple conversation, but the meaning behind it was self-evident. Young master, Green Tiger Gang's headquarters has been destroyed. Immerse hung up the phone and went to Ce, saying something that stirred everyone's emotions again. Ce answered and went over to grab Yunjian's hand to walk out. The following matters were naturally left to Adam and Immerse to handle. Wait. Yunjian was taken by Ce. She paused and turned to take out her Ferrari sports car key to Qingyu from her pocket and tossed it to Qingyu's car. Qing. With that, Yunjian's hand, Qingjiao's Qingyu caught it and replied, Okay, Sister Jian. By then Yun Jian and Si had already left. Long Yuqing watched as Yun Jian and Si left. He clutched his palm, but the blood was already flowing down. "What are you looking at? You've offended my young master. Today, I'm going to kill you." Adam stepped on the back of Long Yuqing's hand and twisted Long Yuqing's head mercilessly. The tea party could not continue now that it had come to this. However, no one would have thought that the Green Tiger Gang, once the #1 gang in the northern region, would completely disappear from the stage of history just because Long Yuqing had flirted with a woman that he should not have flirted with. Chapter 345. When Yun Jian and Si walked out of the tea party venue, Adam lifted his leg to grab Long Yuqing from the ground and was about to give him the final blow. Suddenly, a weak male voice rang out from the tea party venue. The man's voice was directed at Adam. "Are you Adam, one of the 4 leaders of the Enhun organization?" There were 4 leaders in Enhun organization. Their names were Adam, Immerse, Shueying, and Lin Wei. The 4 leaders of Enhun organization were the people with the highest positions in the organization other than the leader. Moreover, the 4 of them had their own duties and each of them was comparable to the top 3 of the international assassin and secret agent rankings. Among the 4 of them, Lin Wei was in charge of training the assassins in Enhun organization. Hence, he was the most mysterious. Shui Ying, on the other hand, represented the leader of Enhun organization. As for Adam and Immerse, they followed the leader of Enhun organization. Both of them were the closest to the leader of Enhun organization, who was rumored to be powerful but never revealed himself. This weak male voice came from a sickly and frail middle-aged man. He had heard that Adam, one of the 4 leaders of the Enhun organization, was a hot-tempered person, which was very similar to the person in front of him. Hence he spoke up. However, when the crowd heard him, they were stunned and held their breath. Everyone who was present was in the underworld, who had not heard of the 4 leaders of Enhun organization. Even Qing Yu could not help but shudder at this moment. Adam and Immerse were the ones who always followed the leader of Enhun organization. They would never show weakness to anyone. There was only one person who could make them listen to him and bow down to him willingly. That person was the leader of Enhun organization. If that was the case, could the man who looked like he was only 19 years old be the leader of Enhun organization himself? Yun Jian had left the tea party with Ce and got into Ce's Lamborghini. Once they got into the car, Ce grabbed Yun Jian's wrist. He narrowed his eyes slightly, a strong sense of possessiveness reflected in his starry eyes. "If you meet that kind of person in the future, kill him directly. If anything happens, I'll take care of it for you." His gaze that met with Yun Jian's gradually softened. However, his words were still filled with anger. Whether it was Chen Yan at the beginning or Long Ucd this time, they all wanted to steal his woman. Ce had never wanted to wrap a woman up so crazily to prevent others from seeing her beauty. He had hated women since he was young until he met her. Ce, on the other hand, was someone who did not like someone. Once he liked someone, he would never change. Therefore, he was really angry just now. His eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and there was an indescribable handsomeness on his handsome face. Suddenly, a pair of cold hands caressed between his brows, smoothing his frown. She could feel her heartbeat as she met Ce's eyes, pressing her lips seductively. She pursed her red lips and leaned closer to him. Ce looked at the red lips that were inches away from him. He swallowed his dry throat and leaned his head forward to kiss those red lips. Yun Jian responded to him like dry wood meeting fire. Perhaps in Yun Jian's heart, she had already set her mind on him. After the kiss, Yun Jian lowered her head, her face flushed red. Chapter 346. After Yun Jian and Ce returned to Longmen City, Qing Yu and Su Zetian arrived shortly after. Qing Yu had rented a suite in Longmen City and was staying there for the time being. Not long after she returned to Longmen City with Ce, the 2 leaders of Enhun group followed them to Longmen City and stayed in the villa as Ce's friends. The empty villa became lively all of a sudden. Dong Ruan did not know Adam and Immerse's identities at all, thinking that they were her nephew's friends. Therefore, she welcomed them warmly. This morning, Yun Jian brought her brother, Yun Yi, to join Zhang Xiaofeng for a morning run and forced Zhang Xiaofeng to train his body's flexibility. Zhang Xiaofeng was sweating profusely, but in order to learn new moves, he gritted his teeth and persevered. Yun Jian had also pulled her brother, Yun Yi's ligament, but Yun Yi did not even cry out in pain. Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Yi were already sweating from exhaustion. Before they left, Zhang Xiaofeng even called out to Yun Jian, "Master, the masquerade party I mentioned to you last time will be held at 6:00 next Saturday night. You must come." Zhang Xiaofeng then turned around and called out to Yun Yi with a cheeky grin, "Hey, junior brother, you're coming too. It's a promise. No going back on your word." Since Yun Yi and Zhang Xiaofeng went for a morning run and trained together with Yun Jian, their relationship had gradually warmed up. "How rude of you to call me junior brother?" Yun Yi was not angry. He merely looked at Zhang Xiaofeng's smiling face and looked like he was going to punch Zhang Xiaofeng. "You can't hit me. Hee, I'm leaving." Zhang Xiaofeng mischievously jumped away and ran forward for a long distance. Then, he turned around and said goodbye to Yun Jian and Yun Yi. After saying that, Zhang Xiaofeng put his jacket on his shoulder and his 1.8-meter-tall figure ran away. How childish. Yun Jian couldn't help but sigh. She turned her head and glanced at Yun Yi. "Brother, let's go home too." "Wait, Xiaojian." Yun Yi stopped smiling and looked at Yun Yi, hesitating for 2 seconds before asking, "Xiaojian, you should know the girl that day, right?" That day, he was framed and drugged by Chen Yubing and almost fell into her trap. Fortunately, Qin Yu came to his rescue. It had been a long time since he last saw her. Yun Yi had not seen Qin Yu since that day. Actually, whenever Yun Yi closed his eyes these few days, Qin Yu's petite and adorable baby face would appear in his mind. Yun Jian and Qin Yu's interaction that day told Yun Yi that Yun Jian obviously knew her, which was why Yun Yi asked, "I know her." Yun Jian was stunned for a moment before she snapped back to reality. When she turned to look at her brother, Yun Yi, there were 2 rosy clouds on his cheeks. "She lives at Huda Harbor on West Street." Yun Jian gave her a specific address and blinked, acting like she knew nothing. "Brother, is there a problem?" Yun Jian acted like an ignorant child and asked Yun Yi, It's nothing." Yun Yi waved his hand and strode forward. In fact, Yun Yi was already planning to look for Qin Yu. Yun Jian grinned and followed him with long strides. It happened to be the afternoon of the same day. Qin Yu stayed at home alone. She had rented the suite and extravagantly installed a color TV in the living room. The TV was currently playing Calabash Brothers that were popular in 1998. "Grandpa, Grandpa." The voice that came from the TV made Qin Yu chuckle as she munched on sunflower seeds. It did not match her usual babyface image at all. Ding dong. There was a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Qin Yu spat out the sunflower seed shell and called out loudly. By then, Qin Yu had spat out melon seed shells all over the floor. The room was a mess, completely unlike the reserved manner a girl should have. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.